Good evening, everyone. It is 6 o'clock. I'm going to call the City Council meeting to order. Will you please rise with me to say the Pledge of Allegiance? All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm going to start with the roll call. Councilman Loy?
Here.
Councilwoman Kesty?
Present.
Councilwoman Diamond?
Present.
Councilman Henderson?
Here.
Councilman Koch?
Here.
Councilman Burns?
Present.
And Councilman Lavaca?
Here.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I am looking now on item D, approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Councilman Burns, second by Councilman Koch. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Consent agenda, item E, only two items tonight. Do I have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'll second that.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Councilman Lavaca, second by Councilwoman Diamond. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, we have two presentations tonight. We're going to start first with our assessor, Danny Hagan. And Danny, thank you for being here, and it looks like you brought a fan base.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me just fine.
Blue button on?
Now it is.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. I brought two of my kids. We dropped a third one off at soccer practice on the way over here, grabbed Wendy's, and then stopped at Pat's Playground to burn off some energy to convince them that it was okay to sit here for a presentation. So it's Lydia's second city council presentation. She was actually in Anacortes for that city council presentation as well. So she's probably going to be ready to give this presentation without me here pretty soon. So, but thank you for having me. I want to just kind of give it a little update. You've been very courteous in letting me come speak each year. This year I think is really relevant because we have just finished our physical inspection of the Sedro-Woolley School District, so that'll be on the menu. Again, I'm Danny Hagan, Skagit County Assessor. Next slide. The things that I want to talk about tonight, the kind of review the three positives of property tax compared to other taxes. Talk about the assessed value changes we're seeing this year in the Sedro-Woolley area, how the reinspection of the Sedro-Woolley School District went, talk about our usage of street view imagery and might make a sales pitch to think about how the city might be able to use that as well moving forward. Also, a big highlight about our senior exemption and persons with disability or disabled persons exemption program. That's a really huge program in the state of Washington, in a state that doesn't have a state income tax. It's hard to be a retired person in the state. So this is just one system that kind of allows that to be a little more equitable. And then just review kind of the outreach offerings that I do. Next slide. So the three main positives of property tax, and I know this isn't something that you hear a lot of people say, any positives about any tax, but I am a proponent of property tax for three main reasons. One, transparency. This is a screenshot of my friend Tina Tate's property tax bill. I know exactly what she paid, what assessed value is based off of, and where every dollar and cent went to. I like to ask people how much, raise your hand if you know how much sales tax you paid last year. Raise your hand if you know how much federal income tax your neighbor paid last year. Don't raise your hand, it's probably illegal, don't talk about that. But if we all had that as a label above our heads, we'd have a lot better sense of whether this is fair or not. Property tax is transparent, it's out there. Everyone knows what you pay and what everyone else pays. Makes my job harder because I have to defend why that's fair. But I'd rather it be difficult for my job and better for the taxpayers. So that transparency builds into local accountability. As city council members, you see that the city of Sedro-Woolley is one of those line items. Every property tax statement comes with a line item, and here's the money that Sedro-Woolley is getting, and it's up to you to justify to your taxpayers that is a good deal. I bring up this example, and it's not to pick on the Burlington Edison School District, but in the early 2000s, they made a land purchase of a piece of property that did not get zoned the way they were hoping. It was a poor purchase. It cost the taxpayers of Burlington as a school district a lot of money. That school district then voted no on levies consistently for 15 years. That's accountability. I think that's one of the advantages you have with property tax. You don't get that same voice with your sales tax. So it brings the local accountability. And then efficiency. It costs money to move money around. So if we send money to Olympia or Washington, D.C., it comes back 85 cents, 90 cents on the dollar, and it always comes back with stipulations. Here's the grant, here's how you have to spend it, and here's the requirements of documenting how it's been spent. Those things aren't occurring with our local property tax. That gives the Concrete School District the ability to do what Concrete wants to do, and Anacortes the ability to do what Anacortes wants to do, and not be under the same requirement of the entire state for everything. Next slide. So value changes in Sedro-Woolley. The Sedro-Woolley School District, we're seeing increased assessed values district-wide at around 7%. That is a school district number, so keep in mind that includes Big Lake, Lake Kavanaugh, Clear Lake, up Minkler, all those areas, not just the city of Sedro-Woolley. Inside the city of Sedro-Woolley, we're seeing values increase approximately about 6%. And the north part of the city, values are a little bit higher, but a lot of that is just depending on what plat you're in. In the north part of the town, there's very plat-specific neighborhoods, and those we adjust individually and not kind of just with the whole. For commercial values, land tables are readjusted. Every time we do a reinspection, we relook at land tables, come up with new values, remove the past 5 years worth of modifiers. And so land values on assessed values for commercial properties are changing. It really depends on what type of property, if it's going up or down, but there will be some change in land values there. In general, we're seeing commercial values going up a tick faster than residential values. I think that's only to be expected after during COVID when we had many years of residential values going up at a much faster rate than commercial and really shifting our tax base. So I will say in a reinspection cycle, there's going to be a lot more variation. Your assessed value might change much differently than your neighbors versus outside a cycle where everyone's kind of getting the same statistical adjustments. This is the opportunity for us to make sure that we got all of our property data correct. The home's in the same condition as it was 6 years ago. There hasn't been any unpermitted construction, but that's not as bad inside the city as some parts of Highway 9. But those are the things we look for and verify. Next slide. So this was me quite a few years ago. But when we talk about the reinspection of the Sedro-Woolley School District, there are 16,742 residential parcels. So those are all parcels that we are having to reinspect, and 1,200 commercial and industrial parcels. We reinspect all of those with 8 residential appraisers and 2 commercial appraisers. That's kind of, we have 10 appraisers total, and they kind of will shift to what the needs were in Sedro-Woolley. That was about what we were doing. Appraisers are well marked and approachable. We don't want to scare anyone. We don't want anyone to feel like they can't come approach us. And I will also say that during this last reval and moving forward, we are not going to be boots on the ground walking around the outside of everyone's homes anymore. We use an idea of pre-inspections. So our appraisers will look at all the imagery we have available, whether that's aerial, oblique, or street view imagery, and we decide if a parcel's property has changed or not in the last 6 years. If we have a property that we can verify that is still the same as it was the last time we inspected it, we really make that a brief inspection, give each taxpayer more privacy, not come onto their property, but still do a good job with the assessed value. The goal for us isn't any kind of increases in value. It's just equity, making sure everyone's valued fairly, and to make sure we have accurate property data. Because anytime a property sells, that sale gets used as a ratio to figure out what the market's doing. So if a home sells, we want to make sure the data on that home is accurate and we're comparing apples to apples. Next slide. So this is the screenshot of the street view imagery. You might recognize that building. We are standing in it. And this was driven in 2023. The imagery we ran was initially for the city of Anacortes and the city of Sedro-Woolley, because those are our two revals back to back. So we've had this imagery now for a few years. We've been able to make huge efficiency gains, not only being able to spend less resources, but like I said, give people more privacy. Our training has also improved. We don't have to have two people out there to re-verify something. We can just pull this up. And what's been really nice is we're now working with the city of Mount Vernon, because that'll be the next group of cities we're working with, and they are partnering with us to share the cost of their street view imagery. So that means their public works department and their law enforcement will have access to this imagery, and it'll reduce the cost of me having to drive it. The costs were actually quite low compared to what I have, and great thing about technology is most of the time it just keeps getting cheaper and easier to use. So big proponent of that. We won't be driving City of Sedro-Woolley again for another 3.5, 4 years, but it will be something I keep talking about, so no one's surprised when they hear that the assessor's office is using street view imagery. Next slide. Senior Citizen Disabled Persons Exemption Program. One of my mentors, Rick Stewart, he's out of the state of Kansas. He's now retired. But he always talked about a state tax system as a three-legged stool. You would have your sales tax, your property tax, and your state income tax. It's kind of hard to sit on a two-legged stool, and that would be what the state of Washington has for a tax system, except that it has invented this third leg of special taxes. Gas tax, sin taxes, all those things are the third leg to make the tax system in the state of Washington more stable. What this means is it's really hard on seniors. Our senior citizens are retiring, their income is being reduced, but their effective tax rate is staying the exact same. They're paying the same property taxes, they're paying the same sales taxes, and the same special taxes. This program's not a handout to senior citizens. This is just a program to make that overall tax system more fair. So to qualify for the program, you need to own your home. You need to live in it at least 6 months out of the year. We don't want people to have this exemption on their vacation homes or second homes or rental homes. You also have to be 62 or older, or at least 80% disabled, either per veterans disability or some kind of state program. And currently the income threshold is $48,000. That is a number that I think is a little low. There are medical deductions that can come off of that, and a lot of people average around $2,500 in deductions, so any out-of-pocket medical expenses all can get counted to that. One thing I am trying to bring a lot of awareness is I expect that threshold in 2027 to go up to close to $65,000, if not higher. Currently we were low, and I think this will be kind of the getting us back up. But we are expecting to see a large number of senior citizens that are going to become eligible for this. I am a big proponent of the program. I think this is a great state to work in. It's not a great state to be retired in. So I'm hopeful that every senior citizen that could qualify does qualify, and I make sure they know that our office is there to get them into the program, not to keep them out. Next slide. Outreach offerings, I do a lot of different presentations on the senior and disabled persons exemption, persons with disability exemption program. I say that right. That's probably my main presentation. I've done that at the Y. I've gone to Kiwanis clubs, Rotary clubs. I'm willing to do that. I will also expand on the reasons why property tax is a good tax for a presentation. No one's really asked for this, but I do have a presentation on how we calculate assessed values. Talk about destroyed property, disaster preparedness. I started when I took over as the assessor doing coffee with the assessors. Turnout wasn't that great. I was shocked. I thought everyone wanted to have coffee with the assessor. Just kidding. But I am wanting people to know that I'm willing to go to them. So if anyone is interested in a coffee with the assessor, they can just email me, let me know where they live, and I'll set one up at a coffee shop nearby. Just because then I know they'll at least get 1 or 2 people there. And then senior resource events, any kind of senior center, the Burlington Senior Fair. We had a booth there this past weekend. We were at the fairgrounds at the Veteran Shakedown? Is that what it's called? Stand Down. Veteran Stand Down at the fairgrounds, and that was a really good event. So really trying to get out into the community and not just make people come to the office, but get out to them. One other part of that outreach is we do have portals now for seniors, so if they want to file for the senior exemption program, they can do it online rather than over the phone or in the office. Personal property or business personal property can now submit their listings online through a portal. So we're continuing to do all these things to try and make our office more accessible to everybody. Next slide. That's what I thought. That is all I have for a presentation. I would now offer up to any questions you might have.
Councilman Burns?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Assessor Hagan, I appreciate you coming in. I was curious, the 2027 moving up to $65K for the senior tax exemption, is that just a scale that's been preset by the state?
Yeah, so every 3 years they renew the threshold, so that's why 2027. And then that threshold is based off of 70% of a county's median household income. The 65,000 number I'm quoting is the number that OFM had for our income this year. Next year, it might go up. Their numbers sometimes also go down, but that's how I'm basing that 65,000 number, is their income calculation based off of Skagit County's household median income as of this year, and next year their proposal will be what the threshold's set at. So I will know kind of March time when what the threshold will actually be at.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councilman Cock?
Yes, Assessor Hagan, thank you for the presentation. I've talked to a fair number of seniors in my city council ward who don't know about the senior exemption, so I think any kind of outreach you could do, because many of them that I've talked to, it's like you said, I'm sure you're aware of this, they have fixed incomes. Inflation is not going down, it's going up. They specifically talked to me about food inflation, and then taxes are going up, so it's tough on them. And anything you can do to get the word out on this to help them out would be great.
Absolutely. One thing that I think Town of LaConner is doing is they actually have a link on their webpage about the senior exemption program. So feel free to put a link to our webpage talking about the senior exemption program. I want that to be out there. I think City of Mount Vernon is currently going out for levy lid lift, and there on the voters pamphlet they actually talked about the senior exemption program being available. So yes, I will try. The main thing I need is space. So whether it's the library, senior center, wherever it is, I can set up a presentation pretty much anywhere. But as long as someone's willing to coordinate that space and time, I'm ready to go.
Thank you very much.
What about the simplicity or the complexity of filling out the form or doing what you need to do to accomplish that?
Yeah, it is getting more and more complicated. And one of the things that the state assessor's affiliate is pushing for is the threshold to not be at 70%, to actually be at 80% of a county median income. So the threshold might go even higher, and to also introduce a standard deduction. Right now, the medical expenses are quite tedious to go through. And I think some seniors might not even want to have to go through that work, and that might be why they aren't applying. I wish there was some way to make that easier, and that's kind of what that online portal is that they can do it with their kids, and they can just take pictures of whatever documentation's required. Yeah, we are working on that.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Lavaca?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I believe that it is on our website, that we have added that to the Sedro-Woolley website, so that's a very big positive.
Cool.
It is kind of complicated, and then getting the word out because not everybody goes to the city website. So I think getting down to the senior center for just a discussion and a description and a run through of that process would probably be really beneficial. I can see if I can reach out to them and your email and see if we can get that coordinated. One of the things that I was kind of looking at was we have a couple of bills coming through next year that they're looking at passing, and both of them, the one in the House and the one in the Senate, and the Senate's like 5798, and I don't have the House one in front of me, but both of them are looking at increasing that property tax capacity. So right now it's capped at 1%, and they want to add in an inflation and projected growth formula in order to increase, and both of them could increase substantially for our community. So I'm just thinking about not only our citizens and seeing that grow, and then the compound interest over the next 10 years or however, that could be impactful, but mainly to our seniors. And if we're lifting that up to like a 70 AMI or an 80 AMI, I mean, we see that a lot of our residents are at 60 AMI sometimes. So the seniors, a large, not all of them, they have retirement, they have Social Security, but there's a portion of them that don't have that. And so is there any advocacy that we can do to try and bring that AMI down? I mean, that's a pretty big amount for seniors who contributed to society. We have the largest amount of seniors in Skagit County than any other county. So I mean, we have a lot here. Is there any way we can try and support them a bit better? There's not nonprofits. We have a lot of nonprofits for other areas, and they just don't focus on the seniors.
Yeah, I mean, I think the increasing of the AMI allows more seniors in. I understand that threshold, like 65,000, the admin staff in my office that are going to be administering this program, none of them make 65,000.
So you're lifting it up. You're not making it the benchmark.
I'm lifting it up. Yeah, we're trying to lift it up. And so there are still going to be people that are working that are paying their property taxes that might make less, but that's with the idea that they're not paying a state income tax, and it's kind of making the whole overall. So yeah, we're trying to make it higher and get more people in. And I think whether that the stat max gets increased, or the 1% cap gets increased or not, we're seeing more and more jurisdictions need to go out for levy lid lifts. So I believe property tax bills are going to be increasing, whether that 1% comes off or not. There's just going to be more and more taxing districts, fire districts, school districts, cities, the county, all these districts that are stuck with that 1% and battling inflation. They're going to be going out for these levy lid lifts. It's going to hit these seniors no matter what. And that's why I do big proponent of the program and expanding it. There's really not a threshold that I'd be super opposed to with how high, because again, I think our seniors do need the help. And as a society, it's cheaper if our seniors can age in their homes than having to leave them. So it makes a lot of sense to me.
And then the value of the home, as far as like the assessment going up on an average of 7% in certain districts in Sedro-Woolley School District, is that something that we're going to see? I mean, we've seen a lot of that, and all of our property values have increased, even though there's a cap on how much that property tax can increase. It just seems like, well, our property values have all increased. And I had a buddy who had his property value because he had a motorhome on there, and it wasn't anything going up on the motorhome, but the property went up 50,000. He showed me, and I thought, that's funny. I just got mine, and my property didn't go up, but my stick built went up 50,000. It's the same amount of land, and it didn't make any sense. It was just like, let's lift things up, and then that does kind of generate a little bit more income. Is there a rhyme and reason on that?
Yeah, it doesn't generate more income. Because we're budget-based, each taxing district has their budget. They're going to collect it. When values go up, the levy rates actually come down to collect less. We're raising values to try and stay at market value, because that's what law is. I think what you're talking about is the difference between a manufactured home and a stick-built home. It is too difficult for us to be able to segment the markets that much. So what's really happening is the stick-built, the manufactured home, the cabins, they're all being grouped in one neighborhood, and based off of statistics, the overall improvement value is going up 5%, or the land's going up 5%, and that affects all of them equally. It's when we do these re-inspections where we're then readjusting values. We're looking at how mobile homes are selling, we're looking at how stick-builts are selling, and doing a lot more analysis. But yeah, that's one of the limitations of mass appraisal is our statistical analysis in the non-inspection years is fairly basic in how we group properties.
And just one more question, and that's, so when we lift up the property values, I've heard before, and we've had great discussion, how the property rates don't actually go up, they go down. But I can tell you by looking at my own tax bill over the last 10 years, it's more than doubled. And so it does seem like my tax I pay does go up, and my property value has doubled. So can you explain how that equates?
Yep, two main things for that. One was McCleary decision for the state school levy. It was a rate-based tax for 3 years during when property values were increasing. That was the state was required to fund basic education. Because we don't have a state income tax, they lean into property tax, and it was a rate-based tax. So as assessed values were going up, the rate stayed the same on that. So that's one big reason why property tax bills have increased. But on our website, you can actually go to our levy rate sheet, compare Sedro-Woolley levy rates now to what they were 10 years ago. They're different. It's 30–40% less, not the exact difference. The other thing that's been happening, and this it was easy to see during COVID, but it's been happening for 15–16 years, is residential values going up faster than commercial values. So when you have a budget-based system, that means there's taxes shifting from those commercial businesses to the residential. And the really good example of this, and it's not pertinent to Sedro-Woolley, but the refineries. In 2000, those two refineries were assessed at $1 billion. 3 years ago, one of those refineries sold for $350 million. Combined now, they have an assessed value of around $900 million. So in 25 years, they've gone down in value 10%. A home in Anacortes in the last 25 years has gone up over 300%. So when you talk about the shifting of taxes, those refineries were stalwart in paying property taxes 25 years ago. Now it's the houses, it's the residential market that's really the basis for those property taxes. And it's not a good or bad thing, it just is why residents are seeing increased property tax bills. But if you go to a business and look at their property tax for past 25 years, it won't have increased as much. The state portion of the state school levy, that affected businesses too, but that's kind of the two main things. And one reason I'm also an advocate for a homestead exemption. That would be a way to try and shift some of those taxes from residential back to commercial. But Washington State Legislature is a hard animal.
Okay.
Yep.
Councilman Henderson?
Thank you. Good to see you again, as always. So, as you know, most of the cities in the county right now are doing their comp plans. And something we have to plan for under the housing element is for income bands, a 0 to 30, a 30 to 50, and then up to 60% of AMI. Will the units that are being set aside at that lower AMI rate be taxed the same as like market rate housing for developers to have an incentive or not to be here?
At this point, yes. The foundation for property taxes, everything is taxed unless it's exempted. And so that's kind of the process we're going. Obviously, there is housing issues all over the state, and the state legislature is constantly tinkering with different types of property tax exemptions. I think there are some multifamily exemptions, but most of those things haven't come into Skagit County yet. So I'm not a big fan of exemptions, besides the senior exemption program, because it's kind of in more of a broad basis, because the more people you exempt, the more their neighbors are paying. There's an apartment complex in Burlington that because over half of their seniors qualify for the senior exemption program, the building is exempt. Rents in that building are higher than the median rents in the city of Burlington. In my mind, it's not fair that they're not paying their property taxes and the people they're living less than are paying theirs plus some. That's, I think, just Washington State Legislature kind of having to work through their growing pains of what exemptions to give. But in reality, I do not think property tax is the right lever to use to incentivize growing. I think the more growth we have that is efficient, the less services should cost in general, and that should be a way for property taxes to come down. Because we do want government to be efficient, whether at the city, county. We'll focus on those levels because we can hope the state will be efficient and federal will be efficient. But they have different rules. I think at the local level, we really are tasked with being as efficient as possible.
Thank you.
Just a couple more questions, and if you so choose to have Danny come back, we can actually do that during a work session, something like that. So, Councilman Cock?
Just a quick question, following up on what you were talking about. So really, I was told many years ago by some planner that an industrial plant is equivalent to hundreds of homes. So would more industry in the county help? I mean, we've got Janeke, and that's great that they're expanding, but would that help take some of the pressure off of residential taxes?
I mean, maybe in a vacuum, but I think when you look at what happens when Janeke grows, there's more people there's more jobs, housing becomes more expensive. When the refinery grows, there's some of the best paying jobs in the area, and they hire more people, they can afford more housing. So I don't think that's a whole answer. I think there's some other I think small businesses are really being able to increase their value because they've been really low. Office space is kind of really low. I use like the Cascade Mall as a good example. Like figuring out a way for that to be reinvigorated would be a great thing. Obviously not anything we can accomplish here, but yeah, I think Skagit County is doing pretty well, and like I said at the beginning, our commercial industrial values are increasing a little bit faster now than our residential values. So if that trend continues, we'll start to see that shift back. But I don't think just adding industry would lower people's property tax bill.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, is that it? Did you have a question, Councilman Burns?
I'll make it quick, actually more of a question to the city. Any chance we could toss something in with the city bill, just a highlighted line that talks about the senior tax exempt, just so that people are getting it who might not get on the internet and see what's on our website?
Kelly, thoughts?
That is definitely a possibility.
Okay, I noticed we usually have some open space on the bill, so I thought that might be worth a shot. Thank you.
Seems to me the council last year, when Danny was
I
here, you
thought
made that
I
request.
thought we talked about that, but
Yeah.
I guess I don't pay enough attention to my bill to see if it actually showed up.
That's what I thought. Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, and actually to that point, I know City of Mount Vernon and City of Anacortes also offer extra incentives to anyone that's in the senior exemption program. So like there's a reduction to utility costs in the City of Anacortes for anyone that's in the senior exemption program. All I do is provide a list once a year of those addresses, and then they can do whatever they want with that information. So you feel free to use my office's work of administering this program for that list to offer any other benefits.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for coming in tonight. Thank you for the education that you do, the presentations that you provide. Always great visiting with you or having this conversation. And, thank you for reaching out to legislature, trying to provide for the citizens and especially the seniors of the city a fair and equitable tax base. So thank you so much, Danny, for doing that.
You're very welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So our second presentation tonight is a request of the council. We are having to talk about the North Star Center. We're going to have George Kosovich and Monica Nigilia to do the presentation.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the council. Thank you so much for having us back. We are here to provide additional details around the North Star Center based on your prior feedback during our most recent visit. And so, next slide, please. So on that note, in addition to providing some additional information about the STAR Center. We are also seeking your direction on what would be appropriate next steps. We are hoping to talk a little bit about some options if you are interested in moving forward. And the plan for tonight is I'm going to start us off with just a few high-level introductory statements that I'm going to invite George to provide the numbers. He's the numbers guy, the details, and then we'll come back with some options and questions. And as I mentioned, we are also hoping that we are going to answer the questions that you asked during the last council meeting. So next slide, please. To start us off, I thought that we can give you a brief summary of what happened in other council meetings. I know we didn't have much time during our joint meeting last week to go over details, so we thought that we'll just recap a little bit of those city council conversations. So, so far we've been twice in the city of Burlington and twice in the city of Mount Vernon. We visited with Anacortes once. Members of the council in Anacortes expressed interest in supporting the opioid settlement fund projects for regional coordination, and they are looking in terms of next steps and process to identify a clear process where we have clear outcomes, and so they know what exactly they are paying for, and so they are hoping that we can work through these details during their budget process. In Burlington, we also had two council meetings, and during the second council meetings, we dove into more details on each of the three projects that we presented to you last time. And there was also interesting collaboration based on our understanding, and there were some additional questions in particular about bridge housing. Mount Vernon also was supportive of the projects that we brought forward, all three projects. And there was interesting collaboration similar with the other cities. They were interested in how that process would work, which we will talk about that also tonight. And then similarly, the city was also hoping to finalize those details during the budget process. So next slide, please. So next you should see a visual of, we thought it might be helpful to show you a visual of what the behavioral health and recovery system and continuum of care looks like. And this is where we are hoping that we can visually show you, on one end, the three proposed projects that we had in front of you last time, but also mainly to show you where the major gaps are in the system. I know that tonight we will be focusing primarily on the STAR Center, but we thought that the visual could also show you a little bit about the other two projects. What I'm hoping also with this visual is that we can talk for a few minutes about the need for the STAR Center services and how big of a gap this facility will fill in the entire system and how big of a need that is in our region. And then I'm also hoping that we can talk just a little bit about probably the step-by-step details on how each person goes through the system and what services they need or they could or should access after they receive services at the STAR Center. So as the visual shows, and you may recall, once it's going to be completed, the STAR Center will provide really three major services. We are going to have crisis stabilization, 16 beds there. We are going to also have 16 beds for acute detox services, and then 16 beds for co-occurring behavioral health treatment. We are really, really fortunate to have this in our community, as today we do not have any of these services available. Well, with an asterisk, I'm going to talk about that. We do have detox, we don't have acute detox. So one of the main needs and primary elements for this facility is really we will provide access for first responders to really have a place to take those who are in crisis and just provide an easy and quick drop-off for services. Currently, if our first responders encounter someone on the street who needs help, their only option is to either take them to jail or to ER, both of which options are really, really costly for the taxpayers and are really not efficient when somebody really needs treatment. Putting them in jail, it's probably not the best. As I mentioned earlier with detox, we currently do have a detox facility in Burlington that will transition now to the Star Center. And the major difference is that the Star Center will provide what we call acute detox services. Really, the main difference, it's really, that's gonna be seen, it's for the first responders. For example, currently, if somebody needs detox services, first responders cannot just simply go and drop the person off to detox, because the simple detox services that we have require what we call medical clearance, meaning they need to see a medical provider before they can be accepted there. Therefore, first responders should go and get medical clearance, which can take hours or days. So they cannot just simply drop off someone. And so when they are trying to be first responders responding to emergencies, that is not something that's feasible for them. Having acute detox means that medical clearance will be provided on site, which again means that the first responders could just pick up the person on the street who needs help, go and drop them off very quickly, easily, make it efficient and easy for them. So very, very exciting and very, very grateful that we will have that. And then, of course, for behavioral health treatment, for inpatient treatment, unfortunately, our community members currently need to go and access services in other counties. Often they need to go across the state. Most of the treatment beds available are in the Eastern Washington, and so that does not provide for very easy care and coordination when you need to go across counties to receive that care. So that's a little bit about what the North Star Center will provide. I will let George go into a few more details. But before I do that, I was also hoping to talk to you just for a minute about what happens, perhaps if you allow me to just go through an example and see how a person moves from one type of service to the other on the continuum. So, for example, I mentioned if somebody is in crisis, let's say a first responder can drop them off. They go through the crisis stabilization. At that time, they will be triaged to see what kind of services they need. Let's say if they need detox services, they will go through detox. Depending on that, then they will also go through treatment. And then at the end of treatment, in an ideal situation, if we had a magic wand, they would go back to a warm and welcoming home environment where they can heal in the community. That's what typically happens. Let's say if maybe somebody has leg surgery and they go in the hospital, and after that they go home for further care. In this case, most often going back, even if the person has a home, going back into their environment is probably not the safest place, especially if that was the environment that was triggering or that was unsafe and they were using substances. That is not a safe place for them to go. And then most often, especially as we focus on those who are unhoused, they don't have a place to go. So that's why the next step would be, of course, to continue services in outpatient, but also finding a safe place for them to be, which in this case would be recovery housing services. And while we do have a few recovering houses in our region, and they do cost 4 times less than other more expensive treatment options, we just don't have enough. And so that's why one of the reasons why we mentioned recovery housing as one of the other regional projects for coordination utilizing these funds. So that is the other gap that's really big in our community. So I provided a lot of information. I spoke very fastly, but I'm going to invite next George to continue to give us more details about the Star Center, and then we can come back to discuss about options. Thank you so much. Next slide, Woody.
Thanks, Monica. So she provided a lot of good information. If you're not familiar with her background, Monica is a substance use professional, a mental health professional, and it shows when she talks about the system. My approach is a little more practical and with a little bit more background about, kind of how the need was developed around the Star Center. And it really came in in the North Star development process in interviews and kind of having those discussions with first responders, with community organizations, and frustrations. So frustrations from law enforcement where they say, hey, I take somebody who's clearly in a mental health crisis. This is the fourth time I've gotten a call about this person today. I finally decide I'm going to take him to the hospital. We're going to try and get him treatment. And then I'm at the hospital filling out paperwork, and I can hear on the radio that we're getting a call about this same person because they've already been released and they're back on the street before I'm back on the street. And kind of hearing about that frustration, about knowing that this person needs care, not having a place to take them. And so those are really the crisis stabilization units. The closest we've got are in Bellingham, out in Oak Harbor, or down in Linwood now. So there really is, that's also not practical to have law enforcement taken out of service, drive out of county to go there. I think the other thing that Monica didn't really talk about as much is the idea of co-occurring. And one of the other challenges that we heard a lot about is sometimes when you're encountering somebody in a mental health crisis, it's not clear, is it the underlying mental health issue that's the challenge, or is it the substance they're using? Or in a lot of cases, it's both. And so the whole purpose of the STAR Center is to be flexible enough to serve a mental health need, a substance use need, or both interacting together. And that's why those 16 beds of co-occurring treatment are really important, because they'll have the capability to do both. I think sometimes what we hear about, and this is not to knock the hospitals, a hospital ER might say, hey, somebody came in, they were under the influence of methamphetamines, it wore off, they seem to be okay, they don't need to be in the emergency department anymore. And that's really the role of an emergency department, is to treat emergencies. The STAR Center will actually be able to treat the person, and they might kind of make it through the detox, but then what's that next step for treatment? The next days, or in the case of co-occurring, weeks. Monica talked about the cost. She talked about the 48 beds and really the plans to open in February of 26. So I think we can go to the next slide. And we've got a detailed budget slide in here, but we kind of wanted to break it down into some pieces to just make this clear. So the annual operating costs, including some startup kind of capital, are about $12 million. And you know what we've identified in the development process early on is there's this ramp-up need. So you're starting up a new facility with 75 folks. When we toured the facility in Spokane that Pioneer runs, one of the key things that they said is they make a commitment to first responders that they're going to take folks when they come in. So that's really their customer in mind, is the co-responders and law enforcement, to say we don't want to turn anyone away. And part of that is making sure they're staffed and ready to go, fully trained from day one, and was something that they've done in Spokane and was a lesson learned. And so that's really where this need for kind of startup costs go. In the journey of this, about 2 years ago, we went and asked the BHSO to fund this. They said, go talk to the state legislative delegation and ask them for a direct appropriation. We did. We were partially successful. We got $300,000 from them, which helps with some of that cost. They also provided a startup cost for furniture. So since then, we've been back, and we're back with the BHASO asking for funding. And we've also identified opiate settlement as an option for this also. It's something that in Whatcom County they're using settlement funding for, and in Spokane actually they're expanding their facility and using opiate settlement funding in kind of the same purpose. So that's a little bit of background on the need. I want to talk kind of, again, before we get to the budget line item, next slide, break this down a little bit more. And I'm going to try not to use acronyms, or if I do use acronyms, I'm going to try and define them. So 3 units, crisis stabilization, detox, or sometimes called withdrawal management, and then the co-occurring treatment. And as Monica mentioned, there's 16 beds. The reason for that is due to federal legislation. Essentially, there's a push, there has been a push since the 80s to have smaller community facilities rather than really large hospitals. And so those are what are allowed to bill Medicaid, are these 16-bed facilities. So that's why the 16 beds. In terms of the revenue sources, where does the funding come for them? They're similar, but there's some nuances. So, and some of it's changing. So crisis stabilization is paid for through insurance billings. We will sometimes call them MCOs, managed care organizations, but they're insurance companies. So these facilities will bill insurance for crisis services, but in Washington State, that's changing. That's changing in July, and those services will be carved out of the insurance plans, and they'll be billed through this regional entity, the BHASO. And so that creates some uncertainty for all of these facilities. What will the rates be? How will the contracting process work? And the rates are the most challenging for crisis stabilization, meaning they're low. And that's part of the reason that we don't have these facilities in a lot of communities. So in terms of modeling out the startup costs with Pioneer, the largest kind of startup cost as that revenue ramps is that crisis stabilization. It's also the one that really needs to have the most open access. So if you think about being a law enforcement officer, you encounter somebody in a mental health crisis, and you take them to a crisis stabilization, and they say, well, what kind of insurance does this person have? I need to know that before I serve them. That's a barrier. And so what we're really kind of committed with the BHASO and with Pioneer is making that an open access service. So that means for the uninsured folks, so that can be if you have commercial insurance and a high deductible, or you're uninsured, that they're going to serve that person as well. And the BHASO gets some funding to take care of that. But that's really where the startup costs are the highest. For withdrawal management or detox, similar process through insurance billings and the BHASO for that uninsured population. One of the things that is a little bit of an unknown is what are those rates? So they're under negotiation right now. Pioneer has a subacute detox, which is a lower rate, requires lower staffing. They're upscaling that, but have to renegotiate contracts with the plans and are in the process of doing that. So that's where in terms of their financially modeling, that's kind of the middle level for startup needs. And then co-occurring treatment, this is primarily insurance billings, and it's a service that Pioneer has done for a long time. They have a facility in Everett for co-occurring treatment. They kind of know what the rates are and has the least amount of startup cost requirements. If we go to the next slide, this is a little bit more detailed budget. If the council's interested, we're be happy to share a very detailed line item budget. I don't think that the cost line items would necessarily surprise you. About a $12 million operating budget, and the biggest cost, about 3/4 of it, goes to staff. So primarily nurses, behavioral health techs, in all 75 folks. This is running 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So it needs to be a pretty well-staffed building. The other kind of pieces that I would comment on in terms of cost, or the bigger cost items, food. They're providing, again, 3 meals a day. Things like laundry and kind of those operating costs. And then under things like dues and subscriptions, that stands out a little bit on the budget. That's things like electronic health records and software and other kind of services like labs that fall in that category. So that's the budget. We'd be happy to provide even more detail if the council is interested. We go to the next slide. As Monica mentioned, one of the curiosities as we've talked to city councils is, how does this idea about collaborative funding work? I think what we've done here is just kind of provide a couple options. Since we're just really talking about the Star Center and not recovery housing, this is kind of simple. And we kind of think there could be 2 options. One is, if the city is interested in using settlement funding for the Star Center, is to just do a direct allocation to the operator, to Pioneer Human Services. That would be easy. Another option that I understand the city's considering is the idea of an interlocal agreement with the county. So setting some specific terms or parameters and saying we want this funding to be used for the Star Center purposes, some accountability to that. And then the county we will be contracting some of our settlement funding to the Star Center. So we'll already have reporting in process. We have a contract in place with Pioneer. So I think either one of these options would be possible and I think are not particularly complex, unlike we've talked about recovery housing where we're not exactly sure where the facilities will be. It gets a little harder to think through with the cities. So the next slide is really more of a timeline. I'm kind of doing a mental check now. We wanted to make sure we covered some questions. How do we do, Monica?
Yeah, you're doing great. There are a couple of questions that I think it would be helpful to make sure that we address. So hopefully we answered, there was a question about the funding and more details. Hopefully we provided that, but we are available for questions. I know another question was related to how does insurance help support, and so we hope that we cover that as well. Could the funds be paid back to the city once the service is underway? I'm not sure that we addressed that. So we were envisioning this not to be a loan. We were envisioning this to support the organization with startup costs. That being said, in our model, we would focus on what we call a reimbursement model. So we would expect the organization to incur the cost. So we would not provide upfront costs, and they would bill us for those services. So then we would have a very clear way to track what exactly we paid for, and that is something that we can include in a reporting to you, whether that is on a quarterly basis or twice a year. Then we can make sure that we bring back those reports and you have access to those. So that was another question. I'm looking here, learning more about the services, hopefully. We provided that. And yes, we talked about the options. You can do it directly through a provider, or if you would like to do it via the county. There are pros and cons, of course. We didn't cover perhaps many details around that, so I can talk about that for just a couple of minutes. One element to consider, of course, when you are directly contracting with the provider, you have more direct access, although I think that does not necessarily stop you, even if you would do it through the county. One detail to consider is that if the provider enters into a contract with now 5 different jurisdictions that have 5 different requirements, they have 5 different liability insurance requirements for contracting and business insurance and other documentation, that might increase their admin costs and burden. So that is something to consider, that it would be easier to funnel it through one entity, whichever entity it is out of our 5 jurisdictions. And I thought there was something else with that. No, I think that's it probably in terms of pros and cons. And I think that concludes the questions that we had in order to answer. We are available for other questions.
Councilwoman Kesty has a question.
Thank you very much. While I understand the need to have a place for the police to drop people off, I have a 2-part question. So it'd probably go to Chief and then you guys. I'd be looking at how many people do you see the need for, like on average, do you need a drop off for? And then if it's a 45-bed unit, how many people can we drop off? Is it capped at 45? And then with the Burlington detox, if they're using some of that portion of the beds, how many beds will be available to us for drop-offs?
Great question.
I guess I'll start off with how many people. I don't know the exact number, but we do have plenty. There's a lot of times, as example provided, we will drop a subject with either behavioral health or substance abuse or both that needs some help, and they're let out of the hospital rather quickly. I think this option would allow for them to be assessed and remain there, because quite frankly, what it is, it's a cycle. It's a continuous cycle. Hey, they're in, they need to be in treatment or behavioral help, crisis, then they get out. What that puts us in a position is then they go out and do something, create a crime, and then they're in jail, and they don't get the necessary treatment that they need.
I understand. I was just looking like, do you see probably like 20 to 50 people per month, or like kind of getting an idea? And then with what they were saying, their numbers were, I was just trying to kind of,
I would be guessing. I'm not on the road all the time anymore, but I know plenty of times, and And sometimes the fire department also has to assist with transporting and deals with the same issue.
George and Monica, so second half of the question, so are there beds set aside for each city, or how does that work?
So we haven't contemplated, a particular number of beds per city. The goal is really to keep the facility as full as possible while maintaining access. So the typical model is somebody who wants to make a drop is going to call and see, hey, do you have a bed available? Are you going to have a bed available soon? The detox facility and the crisis stabilization are short-term stays, so there will be turnover, which I think is an opportunity. But really the goal to make it financially work is to keep it as full as possible. I think particularly on the crisis, because it's new, it is a little bit of unknown. Will it be full from day one? I think it will. Detox, we already have a subacute detox, and it runs full. Really, the idea is to give preference for first responder drop-offs rather than just referrals or walk-ins. But it'll be a balance. It's hard to promise that there's always going to be a bed available for Sedro-Woolley Police Department. It will depend on how many people came in, did they transition out. But really the goal is to really serve that first responder. When you got a bed available, try and say yes to that handoff as much as possible. And that's one of the metrics that Pioneer has found most important and valuable to track in Spokane is how many turnaways do they have, and keep that number as small as possible.
So it's a turnover with 45 beds available at drop-off, whatever, but there's just 45 people.
So at any given time, yeah, it's 48. It's
48, okay.
It's 16, and 16, and the two short-term options are crisis stabilization, which could be 24 hours, it could be 48 or 72, but typically short-term. Detox is usually up to about 5 days. The co-occurring treatment's longer term, so it could be 30, 60 days typically.
Can you talk about how the two buildings work together? So this with phase 2 is exactly what you're describing now. What about phase 1?
Yeah, so phase 1 is the evaluation and treatment center. That is primarily involuntary. So the STAR Center is voluntary. The ENT is through the ITA Act. So involuntary treatment, secure, locked facility. Certainly there can be movement between those, and I think a lot of times people who are in an ITA situation will convert to voluntary. That's the goal, is somebody will say, yeah, I'm ready to get some treatment, and then there could be some interplay back to the long-term beds at the STAR Center.
So working hand in hand. Okay. Councilman Lavaca?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And thanks for coming in and giving the other questions, or answers to the questions. I was curious about the insurance funding as far as like who actually pays the insurance for the most part. Is that something where the individual's insurance are used, or is that an insurance that the state has that they set aside, or where is that income coming from?
Yeah, so it's the majority of the people are on Apple Health or Medicaid. And so that's the billing mechanism, is it just works as a fee-for-service billing through insurance. So if somebody, based on the daily rate, if they're there for a certain number of days, that's what insurance will pay.
So is Apple Health and Medicaid, is that considered insurance, or is that considered, I mean, it's a tax-funded insurance, basically?
Yeah.
It's just tax-funded?
Yeah.
So it's just taxes. I do see the need for definitely these services. Recently, we had an individual at 2:30 in the afternoon on Metcalf and Woodward take her clothes off and dance in her underwear in the street and get ran over by a car right there. That was, obviously, she was in need of care. And then another individual hitting vehicles and raging in the street and 5 o'clock in the afternoon on another day on a random weekday. So here in Sedro-Woolley, we are seeing an increase of services that are needed. So, and opioid funds seem to be something that would be best used for that. I would think about direct funding, but that would be something that the council would think about. Thanks.
And Councilman Henderson?
Thank you. So what you have already that's built there, I forgot because you took the sign down, so I can't read it anymore, but I think it was the stabilization center. So that's 16 beds, right? And that's an involuntary So you're adding 32 more to the campus, right? Or are you adding 48 to the campus? You're adding 48. Okay, so with what we'd be contributing to, none of those beds are involuntary, right? So how would our law enforcement use that as a tool if you have somebody, who's not cooperating? Do they just go to jail, or what do we do there?
If they're involuntary and they don't have a bed available, then they would go to the hospital and be in the same situation. Either they get let out or they are held. But more likely, from my experience, most of the time they get let loose.
Okay, because I'm just hoping that what we're being asked to contribute to is a tool for our law enforcement, because that's kind of how, in my mind, it's been sold over the last not sold, but presented over the last couple weeks. So I'm a little bit disappointed to hear that we don't have more beds that they can take somebody who actually we do not want to let out on the street, and they do have to stay, because it's hard to find people who voluntarily want to just go to these places sometimes, and it's usually the worst of the worst that need to be forced to go. So but you did kind of answer my question about the people who are in the current unit right now, how they may have the opportunity to go to the voluntary side, and maybe it's a little nicer over there. I don't know. But so can you add more of the units that are involuntary? So we have 16 now, you're adding 48. Can we do like a little more, or are you able to like shut that area down if you need the more beds for, something that's a massive crisis that's involving a lot of people from multi-jurisdictions?
So I think it is kind of an interesting question around involuntary versus voluntary. And I think the issue, and this is what we've observed from Spokane, is it feels like, for folks not in the field, that what's needed is more ITA units. I think the challenge is that it takes a very, very, very high bar to convince a judge to hold somebody involuntarily. And communities have had more success offering an option to say, hey, you're wandering through the street, you don't have any clothes on, do you want to go someplace warm? I'll take you there right now. They have a bed. In 15 minutes, you're going to have a meal. That's pretty successful. I think there are a lot of barriers, unfortunately, in Washington State about when a police officer, and I would appreciate the chief to weigh in, can put somebody in handcuffs and arrest them or take away their civil liberties. It's a really high bar. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people that fall through that crack where they don't meet that requirement of danger to self or others, but they're obviously not well, and they're creating problems in the communities. And a lot of crisis facilities have been able to, through law enforcement, co-responders, encourage people to get treatment. So to take them to a facility just like they would have taken them to the ER and get that treatment. So I don't know if the chief wants to talk about challenges with ITAs.
There's always challenges with ITAs. Yeah, you have to have enough to prove that they're a harm to themselves or others. But most of the time, when we're talking with them in those cases, they agree to go. So when they go, they're voluntary, they're somewhat being cooperative, and then their kind of scenario changes a little bit. That's why they get out. Now, there's also different instances, too, when people are in crisis and they're potentially doing some criminal acts, but it may be on a misdemeanor level. The right place would be for them to get treatment in the hospital, not to the jail. And unfortunately, when that happens and they get released, they come back out, and then we have to deal with that person again and again and again until it rises to maybe a much more of a crime, and then they go to jail. I don't know if I'm answering that question totally, but that's kind of the sum of it. I think this is a program that could assist law enforcement, but not fully in every capability, every scenario. But having these options available would be a benefit to the community, and that's really what I stand by.
Okay. Anyone else? Any more questions? Yes, go ahead, Councilwoman Diamond.
You had mentioned that the drop-off services sometimes in other counties and areas have been utilized. Do you anticipate other counties and cities trying to utilize this facility and take the beds away from the people in our community? Or how will you manage that?
Yeah, I mean, one of the ways is our contract will talk about service requirements for Skagit County residents. Just from a practical standpoint, particularly for crisis beds, there aren't a lot of law enforcement agencies that want to take somebody out of service and drive across county lines, particularly from Bellingham or Everett or Oak Harbor, and they have their own facilities. So I think I'm not as concerned about that. For detox, that's something where we often are sending folks to detox in Oak Harbor, to detox in Bellingham, and there can be some more movement based on availability, and you can kind of schedule that ahead of time. So I think we probably will serve some people outside of the county, just like we send folks outside of county today. But I think for crisis stabilization law enforcement drop-offs, I think just from a practical measure, it's going to be mostly Skagit jurisdictions using that just because of the drive.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify because it really isn't very many beds, and I want to make sure that our community is being provided the help and the services before the other counties and cities.
Right, and that's the intent.
Thank you.
I just have a comment, because as you know, I worked up at Pioneer Center North. I was up there about 3.5 years. And one of the things that I found most profound is that many of them going through the treatment, oftentimes we didn't hear from them once they had completed treatment. But those who did respond, the letters that came back, or even sometimes just a note that said, "Thank you, my life has changed forever." I think there's something profound about investing in a facility where people have the opportunity to change their lives. You can't put a dollar amount on that. And, I think that's something that carries on, not just in this life, but through eternity. So I think it's important work that's being done. I'm very happy the Star Center is here in Skagit County. Thank you for working so hard to get it here. Thank you. I don't see any more questions. I do want to make the council aware, though, that you had requested that there be an ILA where we could work with the county to send our funding to them so that we didn't have to work through North Star. I know that was important to you, Councilwoman Kesty, and both the county and the city have worked very hard to get that together. I had hoped that it would be in the information part of the packet, but I don't see it here. But I can tell you it was sent out today. It's something that it just happened. So you should have an email on it where you can go and look at the ILA, and we will at a later council meeting discuss it. So thank you so much. I appreciate all the work that you're doing within the county, and greatly appreciate you taking time tonight to come in and answer our questions. Have a good night. Thank you.
Have a good night. We appreciate you as well. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we are moving on to reports. So I'll start with City Administrator, Mr. Bush.
Yes, no report this evening.
Okay. Moving on to council members. Councilman Loy?
I have nothing this evening either.
All right. Councilwoman Kesty?
Thank you. I have a lot to say about the community center, so I'll save it for that.
Okay. Councilwoman Diamond?
Just a couple things real quickly. I am wondering if we're going to be doing a fall cleanup again this coming season. I don't know if that has been discussed, but we've done it in the past. As the weather starts to change and all the leaves and the wind picks up, the trees and all the good branches that fall, just to give our residents an opportunity to get that to the right location, so we're not having it in our streets and in our waterways and the roads and all the good stuff. So just keeping our neighborhoods clean and putting that stuff in the right places. So I'm not sure if that's been discussed, but I know we've done it in the past.
I don't have details, but I believe we are.
Okay, Perfect, thank you. The other thing I wanted to pass along is that while in the midst of all of the construction that we had going on, the road construction, I actually had a conversation with an individual that works for the paratransit program, and she had mentioned that she actually wanted to thank the city for having put that stoplight in on Reed Street. She said it really did make a big difference to her route and in the area because it does require gentle driving as you're moving a lot of people, and there's quite a few people in and around this area that require that kind of service, and just having that there, even though it was temporary, was a positive benefit to those people. So I just wanted to pass that along. She actually asked if that could be permanent. I said I wasn't aware that that was a possibility at the moment, but I would pass along her thanks. Although the residents at the corner of Reed do like the fact that it is, that they can move. So there's that. Lastly, I just wanted to pass along that there is in-person Swish basketball signups. So if you have any children interested that are in grades 3 through 8, on October 19th at the Sedro-Woolley High School gym from 4 to 6, you can in-person register for Swish basketball for the season. So passing that along. Thank you.
Quick question. What's the dates on that? When does that start? Is it after the first of the
October
year?
19th.
But when does the Swish, when did the dates start, do you know?
I believe, I can double check on it for you, but I believe that starts in November.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right. Councilman Henderson.
Thank you. Just a couple things. This is in reference to last night's car accident on Jamison Street. Obviously, somebody was speeding and doing some other things that they shouldn't be doing while driving. It affected a lot of that neighborhood down there. I had 4 different people contact me from that neighborhood asking for solutions on traffic safety and on how to slow vehicles down in the area. The common denominator there is that people either blow that stop sign or they go as fast as they can from that stop sign to the next one and then, apply their brakes really hard or don't. Also, people were asking, a few of the residents that were asking about the logistics of cutting in for a driveway so they can have off-street parking in their in front of their houses. I took a look at some of the backyards there where there's alley access, and it leaves a lot to be desired for parking back there. So maybe we could talk about that offline and come up with an idea. And then last week was a busy week for all of us. I chaired 2 committees last week. The first was the Finance and IT Committee, where we talked about the 2026 budget amendment. And we decided that by committee, we would be bringing forth a recommendation to increase the IT department's budget by $15,000 for a massive and much-needed camera update in our downtown corridor. So that's going to be coming across in the 26 budget, not tonight. And then I also chaired an RFP committee for the 1590 brick and mortar funds. Our committee, after an exhaustive review, came up with a recommendation, and that will be brought in front of council for approval on the October 22nd meeting. And that's all I have.
Councilman Koch?
Just a few things going back a couple of weeks. Thanks to Assistant City Engineer Kyle Anderson, who gave me a very informative tour of the new maintenance and vehicle storage building, which will help protect city garbage and other trucks. So that's, I thought, was a great asset. I also attended the ribbon cutting of the fantastic new Song Sparrow Bridge at Northern State. My wife and I, afterward, it was a great turnout. There was I think all 3 county commissioners were at the initial thing. We hiked the new trails. I mean, they're fantastic, and this is a lot. I know the county and the port and helped with some of the funding, but the Skagit Trail Builders as I understand it, are volunteers, and they put in these incredible trails. So if you get a chance, go hike on some of those. They're incredible. Now, also, my constituents that I've heard from are very happy about the new roundabout on Highway 9. I did get some complaints, apparently while the roundabout Highway 9 was closed, a lot of people were going down Carter Street, and it's still an issue. And I talked specifically to a couple there, and they're very worried. It's a narrow street, and there's an S-curve that's narrow, and they said people just fly through that. And they wondered, just throwing the idea out, if we could put something like rumble strips or little strips to slow people down, because they're convinced somebody's going to die in that S-curve. So anyway, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Burns.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Couple of things. I'm glad to see that the roundabout is open and look forward to seeing it completed when we can get the equipment in, hopefully in December, if everything comes through. Something that Councilmember Henderson brought up, Jameson and Railroad are the two roads that I get by far the most complaints, concerns about for speeding, traffic violations, safety concerns. And it would be wonderful if we could come up with some plans on what we could do there, because I know that when school gets out, some students use Railroad as a racetrack essentially to get home. And there's plenty of other times where I've pulled up to intersections there and have been kind of shocked at how fast people are going through it. So I'd love to see crosswalks and maybe, I don't know if it's rumble strips, speed bumps, but something that we can do to decrease the speeds that people are traveling there. The camera updates do seem very important that we talked about in the committee meeting, so I'm glad that we're bringing that forward to the wider council. And I also had a concern from someone about parking issues, vehicles being left, and RVs camping on the road that I went ahead and referred to Chief McElwraith, and I appreciate the follow-up on that. I believe that's everything. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilman Lavaca.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I chaired a committee on Public Works today, and we talked about a number of things, which was really good. Nate had a really good opportunity to share some ideas with park improvements, including possibility of selling part of the riverfront field where we do not use, taking that capital and being able to help support possible fields that are built in that other section that we don't do.
It is almost Halloween.
That works. And so, that's an opportunity to bring back before the council. Nate's working on it. I'm not sure when that would be, whether it's months or however long it's on the, he just wanted us to know that he is working on those ideas to increase field space and also generate some capital to be able to do that through land that that we don't use or are paying to manage. So I thought that was very awesome to see. There was a lot of input on road improvements and projects that we are doing, such as the Homestead Park is 80% complete, which is nice to see. They do have the parking lot paved up there, and they have the trails ready. So we should see that moving along, which is great. There will be another position posted for an engineering. It's not going to be a full-time employee or an FTE position. It's just going to be a job description change in order to accommodate the public works. So we'll touch base on that when we end up doing the budget at the end of the year, just on that section. I did want to point out that I believe in our project review plans that you can see online, Railroad does have an intersection improvement plan that is in place. It's not the number one priority of the city. Maybe it'll move up in light of certain events, but it is there that Bill has posted, which is really good. And then we do see that the map is interactive on the website as well. There will be some website improvements, including with the parks and other areas. So very much so appreciate on that. As far as council report, about a month ago, there was a great discussion on a topic. It was the grant program, or a grant for the city to fill out in order for housing. And so I had gotten some feedback on that, and I wanted to point that out. The feedback was that Councilwoman Diamond's input on how else would this impact the community, such as, is it going to be increase in first responders costs, is it going to be increase in school costs, things like that. And Councilman Henderson's desire to table that and not getting that pushed through, that people were a little disappointed that those weren't heard. And we ended up basically taking that completely off the docket to never talk about, because at the time, it was pushed through with an idea that there was urgency to be placed on it after the fact. It wasn't clearly presented to the council that there was application. This is an urgent thing. Instead, it came in after Councilman Henderson positioned to table it so there can be more discussion, as Councilwoman Diamond had put out. So I said I would mention that in the council and appreciate that conversation. So I do thank you for that. The roundabout that went in on John Liner, a lot of good comments. People are glad they're going back and forth. Somebody told me that one of the bus drivers was saying it's a little bit difficult over there. However, not a lot you can do at this point. So I said, well, I would mention it in the council for them. And then one thing that Councilman Koch brought up with the trail builders, I had an idea too, if there's a way that the council would agree on something to present them with an award from our city to thank them for all that they've done, because their trails are truly amazing and they benefit so many of our city residents. So that would be an idea that I would hope that either the strategic planning department that does the park circuit, or maybe Public Works, or maybe just as a council can discuss on a way we can bring them in, present them an award, and thank them for their service. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of things, kind of lighthearted things. So I don't know if you noticed the Sedro-Woolley Police Department warehouse building, which is across the street, down just a little ways, but across the street. We want to credit both Nathan, his crew, and the records department for making it look so good. The artwork is really great. I love it. If you have a chance, check it out. Olmsted Park, Nathan made me aware that the construction of the pedestrian footbridge, which is on the north side of Thompson's Pond, has been completed. It's known as Will's Bridge. It's really a beautiful addition to Olmsted Park. The other thing is, so the City Council is aware you can anticipate a presentation on the 1590 RFP, which will be on the August 22nd Council meeting agenda. Also, in addition, in the October 3rd weekly update, there's information regarding the 1590 and the 1406 funding balance. It's the exact balance of what we have. So what we gave you last week was not, it wasn't correct, but it has been corrected. So that is on your October 3rd weekly update if you want to check that out. Also, after the meeting last week, Councilwoman Diamond had two, I thought were really excellent questions regarding housing. The first was, can transitional housing be counted toward the 30% AMI target? So in my conversation with Tom Glover in our community development, he said that he would email Lexan Long of Commerce, and she did respond back almost right away, and she said yes, and her quote here, transitional housing can be counted towards 30% AMI target usually. And then in the second question, under the 1590, can transitional housing be considered permanent supportive housing? And again, Lexan Long of Commerce shared she would try to track down the best answer for us. She didn't have a good answer for us. It's really vague in everything that we were reading. I couldn't find anything not in the RCWs, although Tom did find in RCW 8214-352A that a minimum of 60% of the monies collected under the section must be used for the following purposes. It has to do with construction. One of them is transitional housing. Others were emergency and supportive housing. So, so more to come on that. So really great questions. Thank you for bringing those forward, Councilwoman Diamond. And as we find out more, we'll share that with you so that you have that information as you make decisions regarding housing, especially with the comp plan coming to a completion, hopefully, end of this year. Now is the time for public comment. It is 7:28. I will open public comment. For those who would like to make public comment, try to please keep it to 3 minutes. And if you could give your name, thank you, Kelly. If you could give your name and how you're related to the city. What's your affiliation with the city? So the first is Chester. Is Chester here? Allhouse, is that correct, Chester? Am I saying it correctly? Okay. Yeah, right here on the end. She set it up for you. Thank you, Kelly, for doing that.
A while back when I first started coming in here, I brought it up about you guys putting this, instead of spending all this money, taxpayer money on these roundabouts you don't need, I guarantee you don't. You're gonna get some kids killed on that road over there. I guarantee you will. You already had one down in Sterling down there get killed. Put a fucking trail from District Line Road here between the Highway 20 and the railroad tracks. You can do that. Get the county off their ass. Stop spending money on stuff you don't need. Fix something, get those kids off the Highway 20 before somebody else really gets killed. There already been one girl down there by Sterling Street get killed. You got to do something before somebody seriously gets hurt. And these cops, they don't do nothing. You talked about Jameson Street down there, cars going through. They've been doing that for 15 years. Speeding down through there. All the kids, they get out of school, they go as fast as they can down that road. They've been doing that for over 15 years. I've been born and raised in this town. I just turned 65. Those streets down there are terrible. They're a joke. There's one street down there that's a really big joke. It goes down past the Central School. That should have been replaced years ago. But they don't want to do that. They want to spend money on stuff they don't need. Taxpayers' money going down the tubes for something they don't need. Got streets down there need to be replaced. They built it with cement. It's all fell apart. Everybody drives down there, you can see it. It's bullshit. I mean, you guys are building things you don't need in this town. That roundabout, you don't need that. I mean, somebody's gonna get killed. Some kid come across that street down there is gonna get killed. Then you guys put that in your bucket of do things to do. I mean, what you guys are doing in this town is a joke. People are gonna get killed in this town. Big time. Then what you guys gonna do? Nothing? Talk about it. That's all you do. Talk. You don't do nothing. I mean, better start doing something before it's too late. You know, I see things going on in this town. They're a joke. I mean, it gets worse every year. And nobody does nothing about it. You guys sit up there and talk about it, but you guys don't do nothing. You spend money on stuff you don't need. You don't fix the streets like they should be fixed. You talk about it, and that's all you do. So when you got to start doing something? You're the city engineer. Start doing something. Figure something out before somebody gets killed.
Chester, our apologies, your 3 minutes are up. Thank you very much for
Fine.
your comment. Scott Wright. Good evening, Scott. If you can just make sure the blue light is on so we can hear you. Perfect.
So
Thank you.
my address is 937 Alexander Street. I'm Scott Wright. I'm here for about street vacations. I know there's different ways you can do it. I wanted to petition, a petition method. So this is the paper I got from the front office Monday, and it says $50 for the amount to get my petition heard from in front of you guys. Well, the city engineer called me, said it's $1,000, not $50. So does somebody know what the fee is? I emailed you. I emailed you back today right before the. Oh, so I didn't get it. I didn't look. So that was my point, because I want to file for it, but the city engineer says they're going to fight it anyway. So I don't want to spend $1,000 because they already told me on the phone he's recommending no. So it's Grave Street. You guys probably never heard of it because it's never been a road. It's not on your guys' maps. You got to find a real old map to even find it. Right now, this is so overgrown, it's knocked over my chimney in my house. Part of me wants to just light the fire and let Frank take care of it. So I just hope that somebody had an answer where I can I tried to file it Monday and I couldn't file it because nobody in the office knows about it. I don't know if you sent out the email what I could do with it. I didn't look. Okay, that's all I had.
All right. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Scott. Audrey Wall.
Thank you. Audrey Wall, Executive Director of a local nonprofit and Sedro-Woolley resident. I just came to do a little announcement. I know some information about our capital campaign got out ahead of us, and so we've been kind of scrambling in the background to get more community meetings out and to figure out a plan to do that throughout the holidays. Right now, we have scheduled our next community meeting with the neighbors on December 9th, and we will be getting that out in the mail here shortly and posting that. I know that seems a little far out, but right now it's hard to get some contractors and some of the things that we need to get all the requirements met. So we have a draft of something to bring to the neighbors so that we can start to have open discussion about ways that we might be able to negotiate or change things or make things appeasing to the neighbors. We will take a little break then for a little while because of the holidays, and we will start setting up a regular schedule where neighbors or community members can come in 2 times a month in alignment with our impact campaign meeting and then a committee meeting, so that somebody is always there to sit down, hear what they need to say, and also have discussion on ways that we can support change. So I just wanted to let everybody know that so everybody is aware. I know schedules get busy, and I'd like to see as many staff or council members there as would like to be. So I will just keep watching your inbox. So I'll make sure everybody gets something. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Andrea. Lynn Tucker.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Lynn Tucker, 23153 Buchanan Place, Mount Vernon. Former employee and chaser of speeders on Railroad Avenue at some point in my life. But today I'm talking on behalf of the Sedro-Woolley Rotary regarding the second reading tonight of the ordinance on alcohol in the Rotary, or in the community center. So one of the things I wanted to point out, this is basically a blanket policy requiring security if you have alcohol. I understand some of that, but we have a Christmas party in December that I think the average age there is older than me. I'm not going to say how old, but we got a lot of 80-year-olds. There's almost 0% chance that there's going to be a problem that's going to require the police to be there. Now, I understand you need to plug in, some security for this, so you don't say no to this person, but you say yes to this person. I can understand that. But there's almost no chance that this is going to cause a problem, and we're going to be paying $1,000 if this goes through to have 2 guests at our event, which we're happy to have. Dan can send anybody down there he wants, and we'll feed them and even give them a couple of drinks if they take their gun belt off. But this doesn't allow for any common sense or any review by council, mayor, the chief, anybody. And over the years, that was the police chief's job, was we were able to look at these applications for a party at the community center and say yay or nay whether we believe that there was going to be a need for security. And what if the police department isn't able to supply those 2 officers that we've paid $1,000 for? Are we going to just get refunded our money back? Which I would imagine that would be the case. Are we going to pay $1,000 for a security guard that doesn't make $250 an hour? And ultimately, there's no ability to apply a common sense to this. It's a reaction to a tragedy that occurred there that is probably not going to happen at most events there that you can take a look at. Most events there are not going to require. But, I was just thinking about some examples of this. So there's going to be we're probably going to have a party there this next summer for my 60th birthday and my daughter's 40th and my wife retiring maybe. There's not much chance there's going to be a problem, but no one would know that. And if you knew my brothers, you probably would have security there. But it's probably not going to be necessary, but that would be logical to have that. I'm talking about a Rotary Christmas party, something to think about. Thank you for your time, and we did do a lot of traffic on Carter Street, and nobody goes that fast on Carter Street. Railroad, on the other hand, I got somebody at 71 miles an hour there one day, and it's a 25 zone. It was an awesome hunting ground. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dennis O'Neill.
I am Dennis O'Neill, I think, and thank you for the opportunity to talk. A couple of things I wanted to mention. I haven't been up here for a while. I used to come up quite a bit a couple of years ago, and anyway, one thing I'd like to ask. I don't know what's wrong with this mic, but I can tell you there's a lot of people behind me, and there's a lot of people listening that are not hearing what's going on here, because this is such a bad session here with this thing. It's just ridiculous. When Monica was here, I couldn't hardly hear anything she said, and I'm only 6 chairs back. You might be able to hear it, but there's a lot of people out there who can't hear it, and that's a disservice to the people that vote for people here that don't bring that up. That is just, I think that's just silly. Julia? Anyway, I didn't know if you were, I'm not sure you're there anyway. Anyway, so maybe people will speak up and start writing their representatives about the lack of attention that seems that you people are listening to. It doesn't seem to be going. I was here 2 weeks ago, and I waited 2 hours, and you had that city, what was it, a session, something else going on besides the city council meeting. I left at 8:15. I was freezing to death because you turned the heat off, and I noticed a number of other people, like the gentleman back there had to leave too. It was cold in here. And I was watching Kevin there. He was freezing. Everybody else was. I don't know who that turns on the heat in here so much people want to leave, and why it takes so long for people interested in what the city's doing. It's like you're driving people away, and that's the idea, so they don't go on too long. And you combine too many meetings that people can't sit through those meetings anymore, and I'm one of them. I had a stroke here about 6 months ago, and it's not one I wanted very badly, and it really comes up on you fast. And I was lucky not to lose more brains. I don't have much brains left to lose, but I mean, my gosh, folks, who are you representing? Because I don't see any action at all for helping people out there listen to you guys on the recording. And I'm going to get a recording every night now and start making copies. If somebody wants a copy of it, I'll send it to him. Because I don't think you folks are doing a really good job, especially starting with her. You know, I sat down here. I mean, I'm picking on you because you're the mayor and you've been here a number of times, and I think you've heard. If you haven't, maybe you aren't listening really well. But I'll tell you what, it's pretty darn sad that nobody shows up here like they used to. They've just given up. They've given up on the city council, because you people are half asleep. And the people back here, there's no point in coming here because you can't hear anything anymore. So anyway, that's 2 of my complaints. I wish people would be told to talk louder. I could not hear the lady who was up here. She's a real nice speaker, Monica. She talks so low, I don't even know if your mic would pick up that unless you're up there with better hearing than I've got. And I have pretty good hearing, and I couldn't hear her. And I know we get copies of it. By the time we get a copy and we look at it, we can't make comments. We can't make comments anyway. In fact, as far as I know, we can't make comments about not hearing anything up here when somebody's speaking. You know, most of you are pretty good about it because you've been around here for a while, so you know. And I think you do have a better system than the ones we have back there just
Excuse
are
me,
in
Neil.
here.
Dennis, your time is up.
Really? Yeah. Huh. I was just starting, so I guess I'll come back every week. You'll be happy to see me, I'm sure. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody else in the chamber who would like to make public comment? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. And I personally want to thank the council for your lively conversations. I think we have some great conversations up here, but that's just me. So moving on to unfinished business, the first thing that we have is ordinance 210425. It's the 2025 budget amendment number 3. This is a second read. And Kelly, this is to you. Are you looking for a motion tonight?
If the council would like to do one, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So the first read and public hearing of the 2025 budget amendment number 3 was held on September 10th. Attached, we have the ordinance and also tried to provide a document with the proposed changes. So that's included in there as well, and the full budget is in the packet. The majority of the changes in this budget amendment have to do with capital projects, just updating capital project budget lines based on what council has previously approved for contracts and change orders and those types of things. And then updating the related funding for those items, making sure we have the grants in there correctly, the funding from like real estate excise tax, transportation, and the general fund, those types of things. One thing that has, an additional thing that has changed from the first reading, we've included in there a revenue into the general fund for Helping Hands Food Bank purchasing the land that they're currently on. We have a contract with them that sets that price. So we're crossing our fingers that goes through and occurs, and then have some potential planned expenditures if that does happen. Although that conversation would be discussed further with council and further approved by council once that actually does occur. But if it does, we won't need to come back for a budget amendment after council approves. Just wanted to also remind council, no change in the authorized full-time equivalent or FTE count, so no change in staffing presented in this amendment, and the proposed budget amendment is balanced.
Are there any questions for Kelly?
Yes.
Yes, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you. So if we could go to 542 streets maintenance, I found in here we're at 213.7%, our original budgeted amount for the Murdoch Woodworth Streetlight project, included in a developer agreement made by former Public Works Director Mark Freiberger. Can you elaborate on that and why that wasn't included in the original 2025 budget?
Maybe Bill can elaborate on that project.
Yeah, let me take a look.
I think part of it is that, we can't anticipate, or we departments don't anticipate everything when it's going to come through. So when that project was going to come up and be implemented wasn't anticipated when we originally passed the budget in November of 2024, and then wasn't identified for the previous budget amendments. But it was an obligation of the cities in a developer agreement.
Can we get a look at that developer agreement? Because from what I understand, the planning department required 3 lights to go outside of the Kinsey building. And a lot of this $25,000 is for trenching over to Metcalf Street and running electricity over there.
I can answer a little bit of that.
Okay.
So part of the developer agreement to install the lights, the city will own and operate those lights, and part of the power connection was an obligation of the city to do that. What we did, because these lights are not something that we contract with PSC Intolight because they're special lights, so we own all the lights on Metcalf Street, for instance. It actually, as we got into the agreement with PSE to power the lights, it actually became, it was more expensive than Mark Freiberger had anticipated. So our solution was to trench down the alleyway to Metcalf and hook to an existing circuit we had that didn't require an additional utility meter and another agreement, whatever, with PSE, because we already had an extra circuit on what currently powers Metcalf Street. So that was solution Nathan and the maintenance folks came up with and initiated for that. And then that way we didn't have a more expensive alternative. We came up with a cheaper alternative than adding a meter to the power pole at the back of the old City Hall building and the contract that would take to initiate powering those lights through PSE.
Okay, anybody else? Would the council like to make a motion, or what's the council's pleasure?
I think we've read this 3 times now, Madam Mayor. I don't think much has changed, so I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance 2104, TAC 25 for the 2025 budget amendment number 3.
Madam Mayor, I'll second.
All right. So we have a motion by Councilman LaVaca, second by Councilman Burns, to approve ordinance 2104-25. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, council. Moving on then to the second item under unfinished business, which is the community center. And so I'm going to open this up. This is a second read. It's a motion to approve ordinance 2105-25, amending chapter 1236 030, Community Center, and 1236-090, Sedro-Woolley Senior Center Building of the Sedro-Woolley Municipal Code, or motion to revise draft ordinance 2105-25 to whatever, to bring it back to for a third read on October 22nd, 2 weeks from now. So, I don't know, Kelly, did you want to make any kind of comment? I know we've read this a couple times, or I'll just open it up for comments and questions.
Yeah, I can just summarize quickly. So, bringing this, the council made a motion to bring back the option with alcohol on the September 10th meeting. We have some bullet points of what's included in there. The events with alcohol wouldn't require a facility monitor, but the Sedro-Woolley Police Department would assign 2 security personnel, either our own police officers or outside security, and it would be $250 an hour. That's for both of the people. So it covers 2 security officers at a minimum of 4 hours, which is what is often, or which is the minimum amount we have to pay police officers to come in. This is upon the recommendation of the police department, so I can let Chief McElraith comment on on that portion of it. It also includes an end time revised to 10 p.m., which seemed to be a consensus of both the staff and the council at the last discussion of this. We did add one clarification from the first read in here, that the security deposit and security facility monitor section do not apply to unopened alcohol being provided as gifts or prizes. The example we talked about last time was at Rotary, whenever they raffle off something and give bottles of wine or a case of beer or something, that wouldn't trigger the need for that security requirement. And then that's all I have to add. I'm not sure if Chief wants to make any comments.
Yeah, I'll just make a couple comments. Mine is basically the security guards. What this would be police officers, Sedro-Woolley police officers, or off-duty active police officers from other departments. That's what we'd be looking for in this method. I know in the past we've had problems there, fights and such, and I agree. Not every event is the same type of event. And in the past, we did have the authority to review the applications and assess the potential event and see if there was security needed for that event, with alcohol. So that's one thing to consider. So that was on our plate before. Unfortunately, this used to be in our policy before. What ended up happening for probably 15 years. It used to be where we were assigned as overtime to be security police officers at community events or at the community center with alcohol involved. And that's because there were issues. There were fights. There was damage to the building. There was lots of things going on. And I think that also prevented stuff from happening. So there's also the potential, if we would have had police officers there on security, this potentially could not have happened, our most recent event. So I guess what I'm saying is just consider it. Understand that it was there in the past. It was taken out because we didn't have the staff to fill it. We still may be in that mode as far as doing that, but we do have other entities that have active police officers in a pool that we could hire from. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll just kind of go in order here as I saw the lights come on. So Councilman Koch?
Chief, just following a public comment that was made. Well, first, as I noted in the last meeting, I was against allowing alcohol there simply because the police and fire said the police said every time they went there, almost every time alcohol was involved. Okay, so this is a workaround. And maybe this is also a question for Nikki and the chief, why can't we include some language that allows discretion by the police chief for an organization, a meeting of a group of 80-year-olds aren't going to be, doing a Wild West shootout. And, I trust our police chief to have the discretion to see where there might be a problem. I don't know why we couldn't still have that flexibility if this is where we're going.
I think the answer to that is that we need to be able to have an objective standard that you can apply across the board.
Yeah, but I guess just to follow up there, it seems to me the flexibility would be in different groups. We don't have discretion in that. It seems like it's pretty logical.
I completely understand the perspective. I think the concern, again, is that how do you decide which groups should or should not have security?
Okay. All right, thank you. Councilman Lavaca?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I, as stated in the first read, when we originally went through this in the committee, and then we brought it that night to the council, I'm in favor of no change except for the 10 o'clock curfew, and that's just how I feel. We still don't have any, and it's been 4 months now, information on what actually happened. It's been 3 months. But 3 months since a shooting where 5 people were shot, 1 person was murdered. We don't know anything about it. But the recourse does feel like the response is to restrict their movement and increase monetary funding, or monetary costs. I don't want to do either one of those at all. That would be my preference. I think that if you do grouping, I did my wife's birthday party we rented a house. There was alcohol there. It was wild. Her sisters can be dancing freaks, and I wouldn't want to have to like rent out a community center and feel like now I have to have police officers there, but somebody who's maybe 10 years older doesn't. So there is discrimination when you start grouping, and I would not want that either. So I've heard that we would love to get from the community center back up and running so we can start renting it out. That's just where I feel.
Councilman Henderson?
Thank you. So 2 questions, or a question and a comment, really. So if a group comes in, like let's say I wanted to rent it, right, me, for my own birthday party, and I wanted to have alcohol there, and let's just say it was 6 months ago, right? Do I have to have any kind of a banquet permit or anything like that for to be having alcohol in there?
Yes.
So you have to have a banquet permit.
Okay, so then the liability then would fall on me as the licensee, right? For any kind of alcohol-related stuff?
In essence.
Okay. So we've gone through a couple of ordinances before. The most notable one was the special events ordinance. And the consensus that I have heard from almost all of council is we want to make things easier for the public to be able to do stuff. We want to make, that's not the city's building, that's the public's building, right? And we want the public to be able to use it as easily as feasibly possible, right? So adding all these extra costs, I'm not really for it, especially if, we're gonna have to pay $1,000 if I wanna, have some kind of a reunion there and, we're drinking some beers or whatever. And, I specifically remember this past summer, my organization threw 2 drinking events down at the summer concert series where we were selling alcohol. We were not required to have police officers there, and we were selling booze, hard alcohol, the whole 9 yards, because we have the license for it. So what's the difference between the 2? Right, I guess.
Okay. Did you want to respond to that, or?
I don't know, other than the event was approved and we didn't have the security officers in there, right? So, I mean, it wasn't enforceable at that point. Prior to, it was required. So, what, 2 years ago? Maybe? Yeah. So, about 2 years ago, officers were required at special events.
At the concerts?
At the community center.
Concerts at the Riverfront Park is also open to the public, so if police officers can go to those events without charging the host of those events, because it's open to the public. So similarly, similarly, like the police can go to any event in a public space.
Councilwoman Kesty.
Thank you very much. Okay. You all know how I feel about the knee-jerk reaction to closing the community center and the resulting loss of revenue for our city. But since I didn't see those recommended changes implemented to the second read, I'll state them again. I'm open to adjusting the hours of operation at the community center to close at 10 p.m. across the board. We have had the same facility monitor for 17 years, and that arrangement has worked perfectly. The cost to support this role has been reasonable, and the system in place has proven effective. To now suggest major changes because of a single incident feels like a knee-jerk reaction one that has resulted in months of delay, lost revenue, and unnecessary disruption to a well-functioning community asset. I will not support imposing a $1,000 non-refundable fee on Sedro-Woolley residents for 2 armed police officers. This is their community center built by their parents, grandparents, and neighbors for everyone to use and enjoy. It is unacceptable to punish our residents and the very organizations that were instrumental in the center's development because of one isolated incident. However, I would agree to doing that to non-Sedro-Woolley residents. I would also propose removing the requirement for a facility monitor at events where no alcohol is served, but there is a band. There's no justification for penalizing residents who want to enjoy live music and dancing in a respectful, alcohol-free setting. We are not Beaumont, Utah. We are Sedro-Woolley, and we need to reflect our values and our community spirit.
The 10 p.m. is in there.
I know.
Yeah,
That's
okay.
it. That's the only thing that was.
And just for the record, the monitor actually said that he believed we needed security there. So he goes to these different functions and he has firsthand witnessed, and that was his opinion, that we should have security there. Yeah. Councilwoman Diamond?
I'm in agreement. I have no issue with revising the time to 10 p.m. I do question the stipulations on music, alcohol, those situations. Because my understanding, I believe there's churches that utilize the space. So if they're churches and they are providing music to their congregation, is that going to require an officer? Because the way it's written, it would, in every service. And then if they're going to provide communion, most communions are alcohol, does that then also encompass, I mean, how are we differentiating that, and has that been discussed?
Security would only be required with alcohol. We haven't considered the communion. There is a church that is in there every Sunday. We didn't consider that, that aspect of it.
Okay. This is just a couple questions from that, because I've also received some community feedback in regards to it. Almost everybody I've talked to feels like this is a big knee-jerk reaction, especially when we don't have any solid information provided to anybody here and anybody in the public in regards to what happened and how this whole thing has come forward. And also the fact that there are several school groups and organizations that have wanted to book their events and have been unable to do it, and now are and would have happily paid for our community center and brought in the revenue and given it to the city, but now they're scrambling to try to find spaces to go elsewhere to get their events scheduled. So there are some community organizations that are being impacted by not being able to reserve, whether with or without alcohol. The fact that they are not able to reserve is causing some community chaos. So just something to consider as we're talking through this. And I would almost wonder what the revenue loss might be when we don't have some of these consistent events that are not able to be booked through the end of the year, or how that would work out. I'm not sure if that's trackable, but just something to think about.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Burns?
Balancing safety and freedom is always challenging, but I tend to err on the side of freedom as much as I possibly can. I don't like the idea of overly restricting what the public does with property that they do own. I'm curious, is there an automatic insurance policy on the property that goes along with the rental reservation? Like, do we just have anything that just automatically covers the building for a certain dollar amount? Is that possible?
We have, not specifically, I mean, we have insurance on the building, of course, but we have also discussed requiring those who rent the facility to get their own insurance. Those insurance policies are pretty standard and are low dollar amount. which we do for our other events in the city, like the organizations that host something at the amphitheater, so the summer concert series. But for something like an event at the community center, the cost of that would probably be like $25 to go out and get your own insurance. Other facilities do require that. Just as an example, the lodge at Hillcrest Park, I had a family friend rent that. They were required to have their own insurance with that. And again, those insurance policies are very low cost and easy to get.
So I wouldn't really be in favor of requiring the officers to be there for events. I would be in favor of us being able to turn people away if they've been problematic and cause damage to the building. But I would very much be interested in seeing if there's alcohol involved. Maybe you find a way to just tack that straight into the policy so that we're not asking people to go out and get something extra. There's just maybe an extra $25. That way we're covering the building if you're getting damage. But if we're not getting damage to the facility right now normally, I'm not really interested in restricting it much. I know that a lot of events go on that even exceed 10 p.m. I'm leery of changing it, but I'm at least open to that. There's a lot of events where people really want to keep going later. If they are not actually causing a problem, I have a hard time restricting this.
Okay. Councilman Henderson?
Thank you. To add to that, Councilman Burns, for the ending time, I do agree with you if it's not a drinking event. Right, but like if everybody's getting loaded, 10 o'clock's probably a good time to get your Uber and go home. I'd certainly be open to extending that time as long as the noise ordinance was being followed. What time that is, though, I don't know, but it couldn't be past midnight because then it'd be a multi-day rental. But 10 o'clock, if they're drinking, I mean, I'm pretty good with that hard stop. But yeah, I mean, if they're having a good time, you know, I mean, 11 o'clock, 11:30.
Councilman Cock?
Yeah, just a follow-up on the insurance. We heard, I think it was from Heather in a committee on this, that, and Chief, you were there too, that some of the problems with alcohol there are people over-serving. So whoever's handing out the alcohol is over-serving. For any kind of insurance policy that would cover us, I'm thinking about, I don't know if we have in Sedro-Woolley, there's things called dram shop laws where, you know, if the bartender overserves the customer and goes out and gets in a wreck and kills 3 people, then the establishment and the bartender are liable. Are we covered if something like that happens? Because we don't know how much they're serving. We have no control over that.
That might be a Nikki question.
Is that a Nikki question?
Nikki,
I think the short answer to that is yes, because we require permittees to indemnify us.
Okay, so.
But if we don't require insurance, then it's going to be hard for them to afford to indemnify us.
So should we require the insurance then if there's alcohol involved? I guess that's the question.
I think you should require insurance, absolutely.
Maybe that's the solution.
Okay.
10 o'clock and insurance.
Councilman Lloyd?
A few years ago, I rented Central Elementary School. They required $1 million of insurance, which came from my homeowner's policy, and it was like something like $25. So it shouldn't be too hard to one of us to check with our homeowner's insurance and ask them what the deal is, and we'd have an answer.
So to kind of recap here, what I'm hearing, just so I want to make sure we're all on the same page, is that the first one, I'm not sure about the first one. I'd like to hear more from the council. I heard from Councilwoman Kesty, but I'd like to hear from others. The second one, though, reservations. They would have to, if they reserve, and they're going to do alcohol, or alcohol will not be consumed, the city will retain the security deposit if alcohol is consumed. Is everybody okay with that?
No.
If the reservations
No.
indicated alcohol will not be consumed, the city will not retain the security, the city will retain the security deposit if alcohol is consumed.
No, I would not be all right with that.
Me either.
Should we take a vote as we go down the list, if you want to
You
recap?
can actually do that. So you're okay if they violate what they said they're gonna do?
If they bring in alcohol, and they said they weren't, it wasn't gonna be an alcohol event.
Right.
One thing to note on this topic is if you might want to go in a different order because the security deposit changes based on what is currently being allowed. So, that line is really to say that if you have security and you have to pay $1,000, but you said no on your application, so you wouldn't have to pay for the security, but you did it anyway, that we would retain that deposit, like you broke the rules of what you're required to have. That was really the intent of that line item, but if you don't have alcohol, dancing, or live music, your security deposit's $100, so.
Okay.
Just wanting to give some context to that bullet point.
Okay, that's
So
good because it doesn't really clarify that. It doesn't really say that. So that's good to know.
So, yeah, and if it's somebody who's bringing alcohol to a party that has, the host is not serving alcohol, they don't have any alcohol, and then you're having that person, I mean, you should be able to get that person out or whatnot. But I guess it would be on that party goer, but how do they know whether they have alcohol? I think if they're violating the terms of their agreement, it does make sense to have some penalty. Right, if you're, just like you're saying, if you're bringing alcohol to a non-alcohol, you should know what you're going to be doing at your event application.
Right. I just want to make the council aware, it's 8:16. We're past
that's
what
fine.
would be our 8 o'clock hour, which is what we have in our handbook. So if everybody's okay, we'll just move forward. Although I do want to say that we are going to try to keep this at a reasonable hour. I don't think going till 11 o'clock at night is necessary. So let's try to keep this within a reasonable hour, try to keep our comments, to the subject matter at hand. So, okay, so Kelly, do you want to direct this then? Do you want to lead them through this then, if you have a specific order that you'd like to see this happen?
I can, if you would like me to. I think the first question is whether we're going to require the 2 security personnel at events that have alcohol.
The vote
All
would
those
be
in favor signify by saying aye.
Wait a minute.
Question.
Yes.
Does that mean that you're going to then clarify with the churches and the other organizations that are utilizing that? Because it would directly affect them. Or how are we defining that?
Well, don't they get like a teaspoon of wine if they're serving wine?
But by technicality, it's written, it's the way it's written.
We did add a clarification about the unopened, so I think it's totally reasonable to say that church communion as a religious activity is exempt from.
In all reality, I think from what I heard is everybody is going to be voting, the majority would be voting not in favor of security guards. So I think it might be a moot point.
And my other question was in regards to the live music, because some of them have now a lot of bands and stuff that are coming in and all of that stuff. Is that being clarified? My legal background in reading this adds a lot of questions because it is very blanketed.
Yeah, I think that could be a separate question, that if do you want to require the higher security deposit? Because right now, without this, without any changes, the higher security deposit is necessary for alcohol, live music, and dancing. So I think that could be a separate question. Do you still want the higher security deposit for all three of those things, or just two of those things, or alter it? So I think that could be a separate question from whether you need security, two security personnel when there's alcohol.
Well, I guess my point is like, I wouldn't think that you would need security at a church function if you're going to a place of worship, and that's where you're being housed at the community center. So I wouldn't want to impose that 1,000 or 1,500 or whatever it would be every single day that they choose to do it, because I would assume that that would be imposed for every event, and that would be every time it is booked. I mean, those organizations don't have that kind of, I just want, like, when we're reading through the contract of it, that's what it imposes.
We haven't done that. I'm not sure what kind of service the church that is in there is holding, if they're holding an event with a band and dancing. I'm not sure, but
I've not seen dancing, but I mean, I don't know.
yeah, I'm not sure either.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
it did seem like if there's no alcohol being served, no change to the contract. It seems to be the discussion. If alcohol is being served, a 10 o'clock curfew with possible insurance. It seems like the simple explanation. And then the monetary value is no change.
Okay.
Sounds clear to me.
Would that answer most of the questions that we have put forth?
I guess I don't know if you want to vote on one big statement or individual, but the additional question, I think, that wasn't captured by Councilmember Lavaca was whether the council also wants to remove the extra security deposit that's currently in place for dancing.
That's
And
what
there
I
was-
was proposing earlier.
There was also the comment about no monitor. Correct?
Because the way that it was written, it said that we had to have a facility monitor currently for if you had the live music, alcohol, for the three things.
Correct.
And so my proposal was to take that away from the dancing, the live music, and the alcohol. Because if you did the, you could leave it with the alcohol, but if you had no alcohol and just live music, I don't want to punish those people to dance and have fun. They shouldn't have to pay. So that was my proposal.
And that's why I think
It's in the current code now, so I was wanting to change that as we were changing this.
Okay.
it might be easiest just to go down the line
Yeah,
so that we don't get
That's what I was going to do, but
mixed in.
Okay, so events with alcohol do not require a facility monitor, but the Sedro-Woolley Police Department will assign two personnel. The city will charge $250 an hour for the event to cover the officers with a minimum of 4 hours of $1,000. Do you want that to stay in or be removed?
Remove.
Removed.
Removed.
Okay, anybody opposed to that?
I'm okay with it too.
Okay. Security deposit has to be increased, or will be increased to 1,500.
No.
No, okay. Others?
No.
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 So what's the thought? What is it right now, Kelly? Is it 1,000?
Yes.
Was it to only have it for alcohol served and then none for no security deposit for alcohol not served?
That was for alcohol being served, correct? And also for those who are not citizens of Sedro-Woolley.
What is proposed here is that the live music and dancing, so
This
that
is
first
with
bullet
live
point would
music
be
and dancing,
1,000,
okay.
and then the alcohol would be more than that, so 1,500. But if that were removed, then if you had alcohol, the security deposit would be $1,000.
So, I'm in favor of, a security deposit for alcohol, but not for the dancing and music. And I agree, I think the monitor is unnecessary for dancing and music, but is a good idea for alcohol.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, Councilman Henderson, I see your light is on. Do you have a comment?
Oh, I'm ready to go through.
All right, I
Let's
love it.
do
Let's
it.
do it. Let's do it. So what I heard from somebody was that security deposit for alcohol would be 1,500. Without alcohol would be 1,000
No,
for those who live outside the city of Sedro-Woolley.
no, we're not increasing to 1,500. It would still be 1,000, the current rate.
All right,
Yes.
you got that, Ken?
So,
It
the
looks like
security
it's a-
deposit for alcohol will remain at $1,000.
Yes.
No,
Yeah. No, I know, he said yes.
The reason that the increase happened is because we haven't increased our rates in quite a while, and it was actually Nathan who went through and actually upped the rates. That's what was going
Madam Mayor, I
on
think
here.
it would be better in our interest, in the city's interest, if we were to wait to do any kind of impact fee or rate raises or anything like that for another time. That way, I'll wait.
Excuse me, you can step outside into the foyer if you'd like to talk. That's perfectly all right. I'm sorry, go ahead, Councilman Lavaca.
To wait to raise rates until after, we don't want this to be a situation where the whole thing spurred from a shooting at the community center, and now we're raising rates, so we're piggybacking that onto something that was a response to what happened at the community center.
Actually, they
I
really
know
are-
I know they're not related, but they are related because we're doing them at the same time. So that's why I'm saying if we want to do rate increases at another time, it would be best to just wait to do that at another time and just focus on the community center at this point.
All right. So, so leave the security deposit at 1,000 for those who are outside the city limits.
And for alcohol.
Yeah.
Yes.
And for alcohol?
Yeah.
Yes. And no security deposit for the others.
Well, it's 100, right? For
Yes,
the-
it is
Oh, it's
100.
100.
It's
Okay.
100.
Yeah, it is 100.
100 in case they.
Okay, leave the 100 for others, but $1,000 for outside city limits or if alcohol's involved,
Okay.
correct?
Agree.
Yes.
Okay. In time, be 10 PM.
For alcohol,
For
not for
alcohol.
non-alcohol.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
What say the rest of you?
Oh, I was just gonna ask what the noise ordinance is around
9 o'clock?
that we're dealing with.
Is
Oh,
it 10? I
is it
thought
10?
it was 9 for some reason.
I would guess as well that the majority of events that take place at the community center after 10 PM are events with alcohol. I believe there are very, very few events. So I'm not sure that a distinction between events with alcohol and without alcohol would have any impact on the hour of the event.
We can leave it in just in case.
So leave it at 10? Yes.
Yeah, I agree with the 10
do
because I've
11.
had a lot of constituents who live
Just-
around there that
Yes.
would very much love for it,
To
the
be 10.
noise ordinance to be 10.
10 PM.
I would agree. I think it
Okay,
needs to be.
are you all in agreement with that?
Yes.
Okay, good. So we're taking out, we don't need the added clarification for security deposit and security facilitator and monitor because we've already determined.
We will, I think you do want that added clarification. You won't have to, we can revise it, but I assume council, well, I guess, is this correct, that council does not want the security deposit requirement for unopened alcohol being provided as gifts or
That is correct.
prizes?
Correct.
Okay. And with the monitor, only if alcohol is being served?
Yes.
Otherwise, if it's music, dance, a party without alcohol, then no monitor? Okay.
Okay.
It says a minor update to the Senior Center Municipal Code. The Community Center permitted the use section, which includes no retail sales or other profit-making activity shall be permitted. this language should be included for the senior center as well.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Just for clarification.
Yes.
So they do makers and they do their garage sale and they do things
They do.
there. And
They
I
do.
don't want to prohibit them for trying to make extra money for the people or their groups. So thoughts on that? Because would this prohibit that? I don't want to see that.
I agree with you too, because they have like rummage sales
Yeah.
and things like, they should be able to do that.
Craft shows.
If you're saying profit-making activities, we have nonprofits and like PTAs and stuff that go in there and book the place, and they have their auctions, and their whole sole purpose of the event is to raise money,
That's right.
profit-making activities.
Is that the community center or the senior center?
That's primarily at the community center. At the senior center, it's primarily arts and crafts.
I was gonna look at doing a card show, because a buddy of mine's a very adamant card collector, and I was like, hey, you should do a card display, a card show down at the community center. I would have never considered that they couldn't do card exchanges or card purchases, and it would be a great way to rent the community center out during the day and draw in a huge amount of public, because these cards are like, very cool old rookie Mickey Mantles and stuff. I mean, he's a pretty adamant card collector.
So Kelly, do you want to provide clarification as to how this came about, how this one came about?
There is an exception for charitable nonprofits. So charitable nonprofits can rent the community center under the current code of the community center. So it really came about that when we were looking at the code, that the community center has that stipulation, but we don't have that stipulation for the senior center. We haven't applied this in the past because our old reservation system didn't have a space to include what your event was for. So if we didn't ask, we wouldn't know what the event was for. Our current system, you do include what your event is for. So we saw that people were requesting to reserve the community center to make a profit. So, the rummage sales, like holding a garage sale. We had some actual businesses wanting to run, like a for-profit program out of the community center. So that's where it really stemmed from, is when these things started to become clear what was actually being reserved for.
Can we do a cost increase for something like that? Because it's $250 for the community center as is for the weekend. They're not going to spend that kind of rent every day for their shop to be in place. So maybe we can do an increased fee for profit up to a certain amount. I don't know. You can buy and sell gems, stones, cards, whatever hobbies people deal with. I could see people coming into the community to visit these events.
I don't think that's a bad idea, and if memory serves, the Gem Show used to be in there, and that was, I can't imagine, that was a nonprofit enterprise. So I like the idea. If we're not filling it during the day, it seems like it's an opportunity for some business groups to rent it out.
Could we limit the amount too? Like
Yeah.
you can rent it 3 times a year for that
Well,
activity?
that's a good idea, or
That's what I was
somebody,
gonna
we're not excluding people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that as being problematic, because if I want a birthday party for my niece and, business Y has the thing rented out every Saturday from
Well,
here till 2020.
We'll cut them off at 5
Right.
PM or something.
I like the idea of limiting that. So if it's the Rock and Gym Show, we're not saying that you can't come, but if you do, you're only able to do it once
I
per
agree.
6 months or what have you.
That
If
makes
we do
sense.
something like that, then everyone has an opportunity to do something.
Limit it to 4 hours a day?
Yes.
Well, it could be that, and also only once a year or once every 6 months that your entity or whatever is allowed to do it.
Yeah, and then do an increased charge, $400 or something, 600 even, I don't know. 400?
One thing to note is currently, just regarding the time limit, we just don't have the staff to monitor multiple reservations in one day. So currently you rent the facility for the day. So if you couldn't, I guess someone could work it out between two people outside of the city, but we don't like rent it out in the morning for a church group and then rent it out in the evening for a birthday party. We just do one day. You have it until.
Is that lost revenue? Should we?
Well, I think we have, so they're supposed to do cleanup, but our crew always comes in and does cleanup, and there's always cleanup that has to happen. So somewhere, somehow, sometime in there, we have to have our crew come in and do cleanup.
Maybe 8-hour blocks or something, or 6-hour blocks, and then have that 2-hour waiting period, and then 6-hour block.
That'll get kind of costly. I say keep it simple and just.
So just,
Can we change it to no commercial retail sales? So like, I mean, I don't know of very many businesses that are gonna be like, oh, I wanna rent the, it's not like a clothes shop in town is gonna wanna rent out the senior center for a one-day sale. It's just not realistic. I mean, I rent public space or private space to the public all the time, and usually what you're gonna have is your craft fairs, your bazaars, the rock and gem show, maybe a gun show. I don't know if they still do those or not in this state, but it's gonna be those types of things primarily. And a real business isn't gonna be like, oh, well, we wanna dip into our profit by 250 to rent this extra space, and then we have to, make up that return of investment. Most of these people are doing it because they're trying to raise funds, they're trying to do an auction, or, they're trying to get community involvement like that rock and gem show.
so you want just to omit that, not worry about that for right now? If it becomes an issue, we address it as a council?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on Sunday, just to clarify, Sunday, the church rents it in the day, and they're out of there by noon, whenever time they're out of there. And nobody else can rent it for a birthday party or an evening event or anything at that point. So on like a Saturday, somebody wants to do their birthday party during the day, nobody else can rent it for the evening.
The church rents on Sunday, but yes.
So it seems like it is a lost revenue point. We can be doubling
I really
that
don't
point.
think we're making money on this. Usually, like, if you're only collecting $100, that's gonna pay our crew, that isn't even gonna pay for our crew to come in and clean it up.
What's the $100 for?
So, do we make any money on it to speak
The
of?
community center is not a profit-generating
No.
facility, more of a, hopefully, we haven't done a full analysis of like actual costs, because then you have to do a time study, how much time are all of your public works staff and janitorial staff needed in there. We haven't done that time study, but my guess, based on how much money the community center has generated in the past, is that it's not a profit making. At best, we cover our expenses there. We would, if we did something time-based, it would kind of be a overhaul of the system, because people would have to then go in and designate their specific times. For some events, not all events, but frequently the bigger events, people actually ask, can I come in the night before to set up? So most of the larger events, like like weddings, quinceañeras, other large parties, most of the time, people for those larger events are coming in first thing in the morning and setting up. So they do have the facility
All day.
There
And-
are other events where that's not the case.
But it goes back to wanting to make things easier for the public. Isn't that what you said? You want to make things easier for the community. So,
Well, you end up with 52 extra spots for Saturday on a year, or 104 spots for Saturday and Friday, or Saturday and Sunday throughout the year. It's not gonna, I mean, that $500 a weekend's not gonna make the city retire by no means, but it does add extra spots. You're looking at another 104 people that can run out the space. I don't know if we need well, I guess since we're modifying this now, it is a real discussion, because you can do your birthday party after, or you can rent it for the full day. I want it for the full day, or I just want it for 8 hours.
well, it is a
Nobody-
discussion. I
yeah,
think
nobody seems to
maybe
be
that's
on that,
something
so.
that as we go through the next year, it might make a lot of work for Kelly's staff, but if there could be some way of measuring that Kelly at all. So Councilman Lavaca and some of the other council members could have, if nothing else, a rough idea of, you know, how many people are wanting to come in on the same day and use it.
Yeah, we can try and measure that.
Okay, all right, thank you. The next question is requiring insurance if alcohol is involved.
Yes.
Yes,
Definitely.
okay.
And a monitor too. Did we already cover that?
Yes.
Yeah, we did.
We do want insurance for just non-alcohol.
No.
Because I would think any damage to the building, you would want some type of coverage, not the city to pay for it.
We did recently have an event there.
It's pretty typical.
Yeah.
But it's refundable, right? So if they get it back, if it,
Oh, you buy it.
But like Councilman Loy was saying, you can actually do your homeowner's insurance, and it's very inexpensive.
I'm sorry, I
25
was thinking the deposit, sorry.
Oh, okay.
So leave it
Okay.
on both, that makes sense.
So, okay, so we'll do it for both, they said.
Can we
For-
include some verbiage into it to let them know where they could find that on their homeowner insurance packet or contact their homeowner's insurance? If it's somebody who's renting their house, and obviously they can go to online for events insurance, but.
Yeah, Nathan has done some research on it and had a great resource for people reserving to do that. So I think there's multiple routes, but we can point people in multiple directions. So insurance for all events or for alcohol and live music?
All events.
All events.
Yeah.
All events.
Okay.
If
Okay, so Kelly, I'm sorry, just a moment here. I just want to make sure that we've covered, she's got a checklist, and I want to make sure that we've,
Only one, just maybe you already covered this, but if alcohol is consumed when it wasn't indicated, so they would have the $100 security deposit at that point, but they do have alcohol, meaning, you know, people are serving alcohol, not just someone came in, you know. Would you like the fee for violating that terms of the contract to retain that $100 deposit?
I think they should lose the deposit if they did it, it wasn't just somebody wandering in.
No, well, okay, so a non-alcohol, anything event with live music or dance or just your standard kid's birthday party with no music, right? That's $100. So say, you know, we have somebody that has a birthday party with no music, but you know, all the parents want to bring sneak booze in their Stanley 40-ounce cups and, you know, have a good time, right? Well, what's our recourse there? That, I mean, they could lose their 100, or it. But the other problem is if they said they were going to have alcohol there, it's just $1,000 refundable damage deposit too. So it's kind of like we're not looking at lost revenue there, but I mean there has to be some kind of a
They would
punishment
have,
for that.
if you have an event with alcohol, you should have the facility monitor there. So basically, they're trying, that would be skirting the facility monitor fee, which is more than $100. There wouldn't really be a way to capture more, you know, to say, you had alcohol, you owe us $250. They would be very challenging to collect that, but you could easily just not refund their $100 deposit
Or their event could be ended immediately, right?
so I think one thing that we hear that I don't know if it's been shared here is that we have very low fees, which is why we have a lot of people from out of the city come in and use the community center. And the reason for increasing these fees was to keep it Sedro-centric for the most part, but also to reduce those from the outside who have no vested interest or any, roots here in Sedro-Woolley to do whatever they want to do in the community center. That's part of the reason for the increase in the fees. So I don't know with the $100, if you want to increase that to $250 or something like that.
Well,
Which is
also,
why I was in favor of the higher penalty, different things like that for non-Sedro-Woolley residents. I'll do that all day, but Woolley, no.
I'm okay with that too, but what I was thinking was on the, if somebody violates the terms of their contract with the city, then we would have grounds if they come back and want to do it again to say no, right?
Correct.
Well, that, at least that's a minor punishment, but.
Right.
Okay. Okay, so you want to leave it at 100 then, and,
I think 100's reasonable.
okay?
And if there is alcohol, ban them from future use and retain the deposit or not retain the deposit?
Retain the deposit, yeah.
If I can mention the insurance one more time. So in looking it up, insurance can be $75 to $200 for insurance going through Geico or Allstate for your homeowner's insurance. So that's something to consider too. If we require that at every event, I wonder if we can do or you do, or not or you do a additional deposit of $200 or $250, and then that would be fully refundable if there's no damage.
I think the requirement for insurance would go beyond just property damage.
Liability.
Yeah, it would.
Somebody
go to
gets hurt or,
Right, and something, that's really something we should include, whichever direction
Okay.
council would have gone, but.
Did we see anything come from the community center shooting as far as insurance? I don't would imagine they had insurance. I mean, are they waiting or?
The city had, I'm not exactly sure about that part, but the city did have expenses related to that.
Yeah, you had to carry 5 people out.
$24,000. And we did, on our own insurance, recover from that. But if you can recover from someone else's insurance for any type of incident, that would be preferable.
Okay.
Well, would their insurance cap out? I mean, a lot of insurance companies are pushing umbrella insurance policies that will increase your coverage. Would they have adequate coverage or just cheapo little policies and we're out of luck?
probably won't know that until they come in. I mean, we can't answer that right now.
Okay.
Because different individuals, different groups, different insurance.
Well, we
Yeah.
would require a standard insurance.
Yeah.
I think Councilman Loy said $1 million is standard. That sounds like a lot, but I think that is a pretty standard threshold. So we would make some sort of standard. They couldn't just get any insurance. You would have a standard.
So
Madam Mayor.
going back to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. Well, when I was hearing you were saying that for the out of non-residents, would everyone also agree that we could then give them the $1,500 deposit or whatever it was for non-Sedro-Woolley residents? Would you all feel okay with that?
For any rental?
For any rental?
Okay, yep.
A $1,500 security deposit?
For
You're saying if they're doing alcohol?
non-residents.
Non-residents,
Or alcohol.
For anything.
For anything.
for anything?
Well, I mean, is the intention to just push everybody out of Sedro-Woolley? Because if people are renting here, they are
No, it's just so that if
growing a
anyone comes in
business.
here who doesn't care about our community the way that we do,
But I mean, is that what we're seeing? Is people are just renting it and coming in here and just destroying our community center in the town and stuff?
Yeah, I think.
Because it is drawing in people and then they go shop or they're in town or whatnot. It does seem like we're pushing away the opportunity to draw in some people for our local business.
Standard if I go to like that as a non-resident of Mount Vernon for the Hillcrest Park Lodge. They do that to me because I'm not a resident there.
I've only rented in Sedro-Woolley. And it's great in Sedro-Woolley, but I've lived in Sedro-Woolley, so it makes it easy.
So the
I hear you if you want to do that.
1,500 then, are we good with that?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Can I say something? Just security
I can
deposit.
probably explain
So,
why if you're.
Security deposit is meant, like, hey, if you abide by all the rules, you're gonna get your money back. So I don't necessarily think 1,500 or whatever amount it is. If it gives you more incentive to treat the community center with respect. So honestly, 1,500 is not bad. $100 probably too low, regardless if you're Sedro-Woolley residents. I would expect that everybody should respect the community center with respect and deposit. If they abide by all the rules, they get their money back.
You know, and so along those lines, so another conversation that we did have is that when you rent the community center, it is the public's community center. It's not just yours. And so you're absolutely right, Chief, that when you are held to a higher standard, if you've vested $1,500 or even $1,000, you're going to make sure that people are abiding by the rules. So you're monitoring them without having to have a monitor. So that's, you know, it's keeping everybody, I don't want to say honest, but more or less, I guess, proactive about keeping the center in good shape.
No, that makes sense. I'm sure most of them will have that money. I know that, like, what is it, 60% of America has like $300 in the bank account. So there's a huge swath of people who don't just have $1,500 to also put towards community center, plus the rental, plus this, just so they can give their kids a birthday party. It seems like it's a deterrent, but that's all right. You know, I think if it's alcohol, $1,500. Maybe if it's non-alcohol, $500 or $1,000.
So here's the other thing that's happening, Councilman Lavaca, is that, and I've been mayor 8 years and I've seen it every year. And that is where somebody from outside the city wants to use the community center, but they don't want to pay the deposit. So they have their friend who's in town make the reservations for $100. And if something is damaged, they walk away. I mean, what's $100 to them? But we're left with the damage.
But doesn't the insurance we're requiring cover that? I mean, isn't that what the whole idea of the insurance is? So we're asking for a $1,500 deposit, plus you need to have insurance.
And I guess for me, it's the dishonesty. Why would you ask somebody to, I mean, why don't you just do the deposit?
I don't know about that. I'm just saying the insurance and the 15.
So I have insurance, so I'm going to let people do what they want to do. I mean, I only paid $100, so I'm going to let people do what they want to do because my insurance is going to cover it. I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it, but.
I see your point.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I mean.
Okay, so any other thoughts? What more do you need here?
So $1,500 for non-residents above what it is for alcohol.
What?
No, you're confusing me.
So I think it's $1,500 for non-residents, and that's
You
for
gotta pay
non-alcohol
$2,500.
and
Come here.
alcohol, is that
We don't
correct?
want you.
I'm just questioning that, you know, the non-residents paying more for a non-alcoholic event than a resident is paying for an event with alcohol, because is that correct?
So
And
you
then
wanna
if a
know-
resident has, or if a non-resident has an alcohol event, it's still $1,500.
Yeah, because the alcohol event per resident's $1,000. We didn't go to 1,500 for the.
Right. Non-resident, or resident alcohol, 1,000, but you're saying non-resident is gonna pay 1,500 regardless.
The security deposit is $1,500 all across the board
For-
non-resident.
Okay.
Am I already
Yeah.
shorting someone? I'm not getting.
I mean, personally, I think alcohol is a higher risk than a non-resident. That's my only thought, but if council believes that a non-resident is at higher risk than a resident having alcohol, then we'll go that way.
So for clarification, are you asking that if a resident is serving alcohol, is it still 1,000?
Just wanted to clarify that you wanted the higher amount for a non-resident regardless, 1,500.
I think that understanding her saying, like, do we want to do 1,000 for non-alcohol and 1,500 for alcohol for non-resident, or do we just want to do 1,500 blanket for non-resident? Is that the gist of what you're
Or,
asking us?
$1,000, like, one streamlined number is a little bit easier, but to say, $1,000 for non-resident and alcohol is,
Are you guys good with just doing 1,000 for
Everything.
resident alcohol, non-resident everything?
Yeah.
That's simple.
Okay, there you are.
okay.
There you are.
Thank you.
Simple.
Anything else?
One thing, if I may. Sorry. If we have any way that we can roll the insurance into the website and make it simple for people, if there's any way we can simplify that requirement, that would be wonderful, because some people might find that very challenging.
So far, we haven't had that problem. People seem to come up with the insurance, but okay.
And then final one, I think I know the council's answer on this, but that this doesn't apply to the church communion example, the alcohol requirement.
No, absolutely.
Okay.
So, but specifying it is a church service.
service and not a.
We can't do
Oh, okay, all right. I can just see this going sideways on this.
But any of those churches are a 501c3,
That's
right?
right,
So
that's right.
I can't just be like, yeah, I'm having the Church of Allen and we're drinking beer today.
Right.
So.
Well, can we
No,
do
yeah.
consumption level, like under 4 ounce, or under 2 ounces? Under 2 ounces, a permit's not required. Above 2 ounces of alcohol, permit is required.
I think you could, that might just get tricky. I think you could just say, like, just like we said, unopened alcohol being provided as a gift, like church communion, and just leave it at that. I think anything else.
So, anything else that you can think of that we haven't covered?
Nothing at this time.
Okay.
Are we able to add a
No.
I was just gonna say something for council people. If you're on the council, no fee.
Okay,
Are we gonna do the third read on the 22nd with the cleaned up version then?
yes, we are,
Okay.
right?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Good job, everybody.
Yeah, that was fun. Okay, so moving on to new business, ordinance 210725, it's business license endorsement for rental properties. This is a first read, so, no recommended action, so why don't we just kind of move through this? Kelly, you want to give us the highlights of this, so everybody knows what they're looking at and what they should be thinking about come the 22nd?
Sure. You get to hear a lot from me tonight. I have 4 items, so this is number 3. It is a first read, as the mayor said, so no recommended action, but if council on this first read would like to take action, we have a motion written there as well. So we did talk about business license endorsements specifically related to rental properties at the September 3rd meeting, and tried to simplify the code to make it really easy to implement and for people to understand while trying to capture all of the elements that council discussed. What I heard at that prior meeting was that we didn't want to have separate business license for every single location that someone has in the city, that they would just be required to have one business license for their rental properties, assuming they don't have other businesses in those rental properties, which would require their own. Also heard that council didn't want the mom and pop or someone living in a duplex, renting out the other side of the duplex, renting a room to a friend or family member, renting a house to a family member. Didn't want those things to necessarily require a city business license endorsement. So it'd be really challenging to include all those very specific things in the code. But what we did do is define short-term and long-term. So short-term rentals are your hotels, motels, bed and breakfasts, Airbnb, VRBO, things that are very clearly businesses, that those would still require your business license endorsement. And then long-term rentals, so anything more than 30 days, where you have more than 4 rentable units. So if you have 5 rental properties throughout Sedro-Woolley, you would be required to have your business license endorsement. But if you had 4 or less, you would not be required to have yours. So in all those examples I previously gave, someone would not be required to have a business license endorsement in Sedro-Woolley. It is challenging to monitor this really any way we go, but if you have more than 4 properties in Sedro-Woolley that you rent out, we would consider that doing business in Sedro-Woolley and require the business license. We didn't change any of the fees, that would be a $35 general business license, just like any other business. I think that covers the majority of it.
Okay, any questions for Kelly?
Yes.
Madam Mayor.
Go ahead. Councilman Henderson?
Oh, thank you. I'm a little fuzzy on the 4-unit one. So if I have own a 4-plex and not a 5-plex, then I don't have to, right?
Yes, that would be considered like 4 rentable units. You would not need one.
But if I have a single VRBO, I have to.
Correct.
Okay. Councilman LaVaca, I can't tell if you have your light on.
Yeah, I do. Thank you very much. And I did have a conversation this week with somebody who was asking me about this very thing, heard that we were having a discussion on it, thought we had actually already voted on it. And they didn't like the idea of having to do rental or business licenses because they had rentals. However, when I explained to them that it is the discussion was that if you have so many rentals, then you would need a business license. If you're just renting, up to 4, it looks like, then you wouldn't need a business license, and that did settle that. So there are a number of people around here that utilize maybe a rental for a family member, a kid, or a parent-in-law, or something like that, that they don't want to have to go and get a business license just to accommodate family members or friends. So I like seeing that. It seems like if we had the bed and breakfast or whatnot, that might be a quantity level too. Is that what you were leading into?
So like from what I understand, the bed and breakfast would be, they're technically a for-profit business, right? But I mean, it's really murky, you know what I mean? Because if I owned a 4-plex, I wouldn't go to my day job, right? Because I'd be making money like hand over fist. But if I have 1 VRBO, I'm going to my day job, So it's kind of wishy-washy for me. I mean, but it's a $35 license, right? If you're in the business of renting units to other people, it's not like we're imposing a $35 tax on every citizen in Sedro-Woolley. These are people who, are doing business here just like a coffee shop owner, right? So, I mean, it's kind of the quantities that it's just really muddy for me. You know what I mean?
I think a lower amount, not a lower amount. The problem is with that 4 and under, if you did require business licenses, it's almost unenforceable. I mean, who's going to run out and find all these people without business license? I imagine we already have a lot of people in town that should have business license that don't, but we don't have the capacity with limited staff to track them down. So we have to be kind of cognizant of the fact that, what makes sense, what would the kind of somebody that would say, okay, I better get a business license. So I think the 4 and under is fine.
It's almost like an honor system.
It is. It's like an honor system that, well, hopefully most people are pretty honest.
I guess that's very revealing, isn't it?
It is.
Anybody else, any comments? Did I give you any kind of direction, Kelly, as far as how you want to go here? Are you looking for something specific?
Not looking for anything specific. I can bring this back for a second read at the next council meeting if you'd like.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Were
You know,
there,
I guess my thought on it is, so everybody should pay their taxes and they should get their permits. And if we are a community, you know, I would not consider it fair that, you know, say Sarah got her business license, her permit, and her neighbor next to her didn't. I mean, it's kind of the neighborly thing to do. I don't know. And with AI, who knows? We may be able to get on top of this anyway in another year. Have a
So-
way of identifying it.
there were no changes to this that we discussed, I don't think, right?
No.
So should we just make a motion right now?
Yeah.
Do you want to make a motion? Okay.
I'll make a motion for ordinance 2107,
I will second.
TAC 25. Yep.
I'll second.
So we have a motion to approve ordinance 2107 to 5 business license endorsement for rental properties. All those in favor signify by saying
Aye.
opposed, same sign.
Opposed.
Okay. We have one opposition, and that is Councilman Loy. Okay. We are looking at agreement 2025218IA, Skagit Conservation District, donation of trees and shrubs to beautify Olmsted Park. So this is something, this is last Monday, I believe it was, this is something that I actually polled. The trees are actually native trees to Washington, and couldn't really use them in the roundabouts. They get to be 30 to 60 feet tall. I mean, that's not going to work, right, in the roundabout. So I actually just kind of put this in front of Nathan and Kyle and to see if this is something that they wanted to do. And they did get in touch with the Skagit Conservatory District, and apparently they did work something out. So it's pretty straightforward. I don't know, any questions, please feel free.
Are any of these the kind of trees that, you know, we have problem trees on our streets, right? That shit, you know, drop the wrong things and create a lot of maintenance. Are all these trees?
I don't know which of them would be deciduous and which of them would be evergreens, but I could tell you the ones that were presented to us by the Conservatory District, they were all evergreens.
Okay.
But I don't know, and I don't know if Director Bullock knows at all, but it's going to be in a park. These are going to be in a park.
I get
Yeah.
it, and it's, you
Yeah.
know, and I appreciate the Conservation District providing this, but I
Yeah.
just had that question.
They do this every year. It's really a wonderful program. Yeah. Do you want to make a motion, or you want this to come back?
Make a motion for agreement 2025, TAC 218, TAC 1A.
I'll second.
Okay.
I guess.
All right,
Unless-
I heard Councilman Clark first, if that's okay. So we have a motion by Councilman Lavaca, second by Councilman Clark, to authorize the mayor to execute agreement number 202521IA, an interlocal agreement between Skagit Conservatory District for $0. Can't beat that. Okay, moving on, thank you. Oh,
Aye.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm thinking about it.
We're going to get chestnuts, right?
All right, last item of the night. Thank you for your good work tonight. It's 9:06. This is Resolution 116825. It's the master fee schedule updated. It's the first read, and this will come back because of the changes that we've already made. But Kelly, go ahead and address this and see if there's things that the council would like to hear more about or learn more about.
Yes, so instead of updating fees in the municipal code or individually, we update them in the master fee schedule, one big list. So first thing, we just made some really minor corrections in the solid waste department rates, really just things that we missed a year ago when we were updating it, just inconsistencies there, but no changes to any of the major fees there. We did include an update to the community center fees. Part of them are based on Nathan's recommendation for updates. So included in there, since we haven't updated the rates at the community center for a while, increasing those rates. And then we also have the increase or the the items in there that impact the community center, like the security deposit, the security fees. So we'll bring this back for a second read, as the mayor said, with those changes based on the community center ordinance. But as it stands, we'll leave the other adjustments in there. We've also added the Olmsted Park shelters, although, they're not ready to be rented, that whenever they are, we'll have those fees listed there. We also added, currently the city has a 3% fee for credit card transactions online through the reservation system, which is a pretty standard credit card fee. People can always come in and, make a credit card transaction. Here, we don't charge the fee at City Hall, or they can pay in cash or check at City Hall, but we do receive that 3% fee, and the city has been paying that, so I would recommend passing that along. Just on the back end, we do pay that fee for money coming in, so whenever someone does have a security deposit, that money comes in. We pay the 3% fee on the rental amount and the deposit. We don't pay a fee when we send the money back for their deposit, but I would recommend the 3% go to the consumer, or they can come in. We also included the ambulance service fees in the master fee schedule. These probably should have been in there originally. We have a requirement to post them on our website, which we do have it posted on the fire department's page on the website, but wanted to include it in our master fee schedule.
Can I ask a question there? Maybe I'm jumping the gun since I'm a relatively new council member, but I saw the story about the county looking at some pretty significant increases in their ambulance fees. Will that impact us?
I'll let Chief answer that.
The county fees are what we're contracted to actually mimic. So the idea with the levy rates is no matter where you are, as far as from Anacortes all the way up to the top of the pass, you're going to get the same exact rates, no matter which provider is there to pick you up. The ambulance service fee rates really don't make a big impact on any of our residents or anything at all, because the fees based on the Medicare, Medicaid, and insurance rates are really already set. So what would happen on these, 25 years ago, we wouldn't change the rates at all for 15, 20 years, and then we'd be like, okay, now we got to catch up to the region, because when we're getting paid a percentage of what our overall cost is anyway, the actual payer mix that we have, like right now, the only people that this would affect is like 3 to 6%. So the majority of our payer mix is Medicare, Medicaid, and insured. So these rates, we have it set up on a 6-year scale for the entire county. So our contract to accept those levy rates is that we will accept whatever the county does, and it's on a 6-year schedule. So that's the only reason these are coming before the commissioners right now, as you see in the newspaper, is because that cycle has come to an end and we just got to renew it.
Okay, I got it. Thanks, Chief.
If that makes any sense.
It does, thank you.
We've also added in, so we had a separate document for the fire department training facility fees. So instead of having an appendix, we just included it right in there, and had the hourly rate just be the annual average rate calculated by the finance department, instead of having to update that frequently in the master fee schedule. So that's a summary of the changes included in there. Also just want to note that since we are in the last quarter of the year making a couple of changes, that these will impact 2025, but you will see a update again at a little bit later in the year for the 2026 utility rates. So we update the utility rates every year. Those are in the schedule. So we will update those separately.
Any questions? Go ahead, Councilman Henderson.
So are we gonna have to do an additional budget amendment for changing these rates on the 2025 schedule at all? Or are we good?
We will need to update the rates for utilities for 2026, but we won't need to do a budget amendment related to.
For 25?
Yeah, it's not
Right.
associated with a
Okay.
budget amendment.
Thanks.
All right. Yes, go ahead.
So on the rates for the utilities update, is that a rate increase that we're looking at discussing or planning, or is it, what do you mean by update?
In previous years, we've done rate studies every year and then had public hearings regarding the rates. But in the previous round of utility rate updates, the ordinance set it at a percentage, and I don't have that with me right now, but I believe it is connected to CPIU or another inflation factor. And maybe there's a cap. I'm not sure, but when we do that update, we'll definitely have all that information for council. But it won't be the same format as previous years because the ordinance last year changed that.
I think we saved because we're not doing the rate studies, which is actually kind of extensively costly. So, all right, thank you.
Is this something that you'd be okay with us bringing it back on consent agenda? Or is it something you want to debate?
With everything that we discussed with the community center, all of that stuff's going to be in there. The only other thing was really going to be that ambulance charges, and that was just adding it in, wasn't changing anything.
Okay. So consent agenda
I would be in
okay?
favor.
Okay. All right, if there's no other comments or questions, we have come to the end of our packet, and it is 9:15. I want to thank you all. This was a lot to go through, and also the presentations was a lot to take in. But greatly appreciate your participation and your commitment to getting this packet through. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. We are adjourned.